Have you ever cracked open a school textbook and wondered, wait, how old is this stuff really? It's a quiet question, but a powerful one. Think of a textbook like a snapshot-tan old photo trying to capture a world that never stands still. Once the ink dries and the books roll off the presses, that version of knowledge is frozen. But outside those pages, the world races ahead. New breakthroughs reshape what we know. History keeps adding new chapters. Science keeps rewriting old answers and asking questions we didn't even know existed. For a long time, textbooks were the gateway to knowledge. But picture this. You're trying to understand how your smartphone works from a book written when flip phones were the hottest thing around. It wouldn't just be missing a few details, it would describe a whole different reality. Or imagine using a guide to video games that only talks about dusty arcade machines while you're trying to master an online multiplayer battle. That's exactly what happens when some textbooks stay stuck in the past. What was cutting edge 15 years ago might be half the story nowhere, even completely outdated. Now, don't get me wrong, Gold, knowledge isn't worthless. It's the bedrock we build on. But if we only lean on pages printed decades ago, we risk navigating today's world with an old map that leaves out entire neighborhoods. The main roads might be there, but the new roads and hidden shortcuts, you'll never find them. So real learning means remembering that knowledge isn't status, it's alive. It grows, twists, expands, it demands curiosity, it pushes us to keep exploring. Think of learning not as reading an ancient scroll, but as stepping into an unfolding adventure that never really ends. And what about sitting in class, staring at a math problem or memorizing dates from a war, thinking, when am I ever going to use this? You're not alone. So many students feel this disconnect, this sense that school is packed with facts that don't always line up with real life. Here's the thing. Schools were designed to give everyone a solid foundation, big, broad, and meant to turn kids into well-rounded adults. Back then, that made sense. But the world changed faster than the classroom did. Now, we live in an age of deep, specialized knowledge, yet we're still memorizing lists and solving equations that don't always match up with the skills we actually use. Picture it. You spend hours figuring out the chemical formula for something you'll never see again, but no one shows you how to decode a credit card bill or recognize fake news. It's like learning to build a perfect miniature car engine while never learning how to fix a flat on your bike. Sure, the engine is fascinating, but the bike tire is what you'll really need. So when people say school feels outdated, they don't mean we should ditch learning altogether. They're really asking, does what we're learning prepare us for life? Does it help us think sharper, live smarter, adapt faster? Or are we just carrying leftovers from a world that doesn't exist anymore? The real challenge isn't to learn less, it's to learn better. To fill our minds with knowledge that builds us up for the tests that matter most, the ones life throws at us every single day. Have you ever looked around your classroom and wondered why all the desks are lined up in perfect rows? It's a setup so common. Almost every school has classrooms arranged this way. But why? What's the real thinking behind it? Here's the thing. This specific way of arranging classroom furniture isn't just random. It comes from a distinct time in history, an era when society was undergoing massive shifts. Think back to the Industrial Revolution, which happened hundreds of years ago. Factories were becoming common, and they needed workers to operate efficiently, to produce goods quickly. Discipline and order were key to this new industrial world. So when schools began to expand rapidly and become more widely available, people looked for effective models. They saw how well the factory system worked for managing large groups and thought, what if we arrange students like workers on an assembly line? This setup made perfect sense for managing many students at once, making sure everyone faced forward and received the same instruction from a single teacher. It allowed one person to oversee and deliver information to many, much like a supervisor on a factory floor. You can still see this type of thinking in other parts of our lives today. Imagine how a large audience sits in rows at a concert or a play, or how people line up neatly for tickets. It's about creating order, making sure everyone has a clear view, and delivering information or an experience uniformly to a big group. This structure was considered the most efficient way to teach many children at once in a controlled environment. So while sitting in neat rows feels totally normal and expected, it's actually a direct echo from an older time. It reminds us of a period when the world prioritized efficient production and mass education. It certainly made sense for that era. But here's something to ponder. Does a classroom setup designed primarily for factory-like efficiency still perfectly fit how we learn best, or how we interact and share ideas in today's world? It is a quiet question to carry with you about what modern schooling could become. Have you ever stopped to really think about the school bell? That sudden loud sound that tells you exactly when to move, when to stop, and when to start something new. It dictates your whole day from class to class, even when you eat or go to the bathroom. It's like an invisible hand pushing you from one activity to the next, moment by moment. Here's the thing, that bell isn't just a simple signal. It's a powerful symbol of how schools were designed a long time ago. Think back to the Industrial Revolution, when factories became a huge part of life. People needed to be trained to work in those factories, to follow strict schedules, and to do the same task over and over. So, schools were set up in a similar way. They were built to be efficient, like an assembly line for learning. The bell became a tool to manage large groups of students, moving them like parts on that line, all at the same pace. It taught obedience and punctuality, which were important for factory jobs. But here's a question. Does a bell really help you learn better? Imagine trying to read a really good book, just getting into the story, and then a loud bell rings, forcing you to stop instantly and switch to a completely different subject. It breaks your focus. It doesn't let your brain stay curious and explore something deeply. It's a bit like a gardener trying to grow different kinds of plants, but giving all of them the exact same amount of water at the exact same time, no matter what they actually need. Some plants might thrive, but many won't. So while the bell helps keep things organized, it also reminds us that modern school is still stuck in an old factory model. It trains us to respond to commands, but not always to think for ourselves or follow our own natural curiosity. We are not robots programmed to move when a sound tells us to. Perhaps learning should be more about discovering things at our own pace, rather than always being told what to do by a chime. Have you ever sat down with a pile of homework and felt like you were just moving your hand, but not really your mind? That feeling is often what we call busy work. It's tasks that take up time but don't add much to what you already know. You might spend an hour on something, but at the end, you don't feel smarter or like you've learned a new skill. Now, homework started out as a way to practice what you learned in class. Think of it like a musician practicing scales, repeating something to get better at it, or an athlete running drills to build strength. The idea was to help ideas stick in your brain, to reinforce new lessons. But here's the thing, sometimes that practice turns into something else. It stops being about getting better and starts being about just filling time. It's like doing a chore just to say you did something, not because it truly cleans up. Imagine you're learning to bake cookies. The first few times, following the recipe helps a lot. You learn to measure, to mix, to tell when they're done. That's real learning. But what if your teacher then made you copy the recipe out 5 more times by hand, just to prove you could copy it? You wouldn't learn anything new about baking. You'd just be busy. Or think about it like this. If you're cleaning your room and you just move things from one side to the other without actually putting them away, you're busy but not productive. Our time is precious, even for an 8th grader. Every minute we spend on something should ideally help us grow, learn, or understand. When homework feels like busy work, it can make us wonder about the purpose of our effort. It teaches us that not all effort leads to equal reward. It's not about being lazy. It's about wanting your time and hard work to truly matter. It makes us think about real learning versus just being occupied. And that's why it matters. Our learning journey should feel meaningful, not just endless. Have you ever gotten a good grade on a test, but then a week later, you couldn't remember much of what you studied? This feeling points to a big question. Do grades really show how much we've learned? Often, grades just show how good we are at memorizing facts for a short time. They might tell us if we can repeat information. But true learning is about understanding. It means taking new ideas and making them part of how you think. It's about being able to use what you've learned in new situations. A good grade might mean you pass a test, but it doesn't always mean you truly grasp the topic. Grades as we know them are fairly new. For a long time, learning was about apprenticeships. You learned by doing, with an experienced person guiding you. You didn't get a B on your carpentry skills. You built a strong table, or you didn't. Modern grading came from schools trying to sort students quickly, but the grade became the main goal, often more important than actual learning. Imagine learning to play the guitar. You could read a book about chords and memorize every finger position. You might even pass a written test on music theory, but that doesn't mean you can play a song beautifully. To truly learn guitar, you have to practice. You need to make mistakes, feel the strings, and let your fingers find their way. The grade on a guitar player isn't a letter on a report card. It's the music they make and the joy they feel playing it. The real learning is in the doing, not just recalling facts. So, here's the thing. Grades are a tool, a way to measure. But like any tool, they can be used for good, or they can miss the point completely. They can motivate us, sure, but true learning is about curiosity, about asking why and how. It's about growing your mind, not just collecting points. The most valuable lessons are often the ones you carry with you, the ones that help you understand the world better, not just the ones that earn you a letter on a piece of paper. Have you ever stopped to think about why school looks the way it does? Why do we sit in rows, often learning the same thing at the same time? A big part of how we do school today, from the ringing bells to how subjects are taught, was designed for a world very different from ours now. It's like trying to navigate a new city with a really old map. Some things are still there, but so much has changed that it's just not the best tool for today. Back when our main school systems were first created, over 100 years ago, the world was rapidly changing because of the Industrial Revolution. Factories were booming, and industries needed lots of workers who could follow directions, do repetitive tasks, and be on time. Schools were set up to prepare kids for this. They taught basic skills, had students sit in neat rows, and moved them through subjects with a bell, much like an assembly line. This system was very good at what it was designed for, creating a workforce for the industrial world. Students learned to follow rules, listen, and perform specific tasks. But here's the thing, our world isn't dominated by factory assembly lines anymore. We live in a time of incredible change, where new technologies appear constantly, and information is everywhere. We need people who can think for themselves, solve complex problems, and create new ideas. So, when we keep learning in ways made for a very different past, we might miss out on learning the skills that truly matter for our fast-changing future. It's not just about memorizing facts. It's about learning how to think, how to create, and how to work with others in new ways. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if the old design is truly helping us prepare for the world that is coming instead of just the one that is already passed. Do you ever feel like you're always rushing in school? Like there's a checklist of things to get through and not enough time just to think? Here's the thing. Modern schools often pack so much into the day, there's hardly any space left for actual creativity. What does that mean? It means less time for dreaming up new ideas, less time for playing with concepts, and more time just memorizing facts or following exact steps. You learn to give the right answer, not necessarily your answer. Think about it. A long time ago, many schools were about discovery. People like ancient philosophers or artists often had time to simply explore. But then, as the world changed, especially with the Industrial Revolution, schools started looking more like factories. The goal became to make everyone learn the same things at the same speed. It was about making good workers, not necessarily deep thinkers or inventors. So, the schedule got packed. Imagine you have a project in art class. Instead of being told, draw whatever expresses this feeling, you're told, draw this exact picture in these colors using this technique. You might follow the steps perfectly, but did you really create something? Or in science, if you're only asked to repeat an experiment exactly, without wondering what else you could try, that's less about creative problem solving and more about following a recipe. And that's why it matters. When we don't have time to be truly creative, we miss out. We miss the chance to really understand ourselves, to find our own unique voice, or to solve problems in new ways. It's not just about drawing or painting. Creativity is about finding fresh solutions to any challenge. It's about curiosity and wonder. When school doesn't leave room for that, it feels like a big part of being human is being pushed aside. We need that space to wonder, to imagine, and to truly build something from inside ourselves. Have you ever sat in class, maybe learning some dates or names, and thought, can I just look this up? It's a fair question. For a long time, school was really important for giving people facts. Before the internet, before even giant libraries were common, if you wanted to know something, you often had to learn it from a teacher or a book that was hard to get. So, knowing lots of facts from memory was super useful. It was how you carried knowledge around with you, like a personal library in your head. But here's the thing. Times have changed. Today, much of the world's information is literally at your fingertips. You can instantly find the capital of France, the longest river, or who invented the light bulb. It's not that these facts aren't important, it's that knowing how to find them and what to do with them might be even more important now. It's like having a super powerful tool, Google, but still spending all your time learning how to dig a hole with a spoon. You need to learn how to use the tool, right? Imagine you're trying to build something cool, like a complex Lego set. Knowing the name of every single brick isn't as helpful as understanding how the pieces fit together, what makes a structure strong, or how to follow the instructions. The internet is like that instruction manual, plus a huge database of every Lego piece ever made. Learning to ask the right questions, to figure out if information is true, and to connect different ideas, that's the real skill. It's less about being a walking encyclopedia and more about being a great detective or a skill builder. When we focus on things easily Googled, we might miss out on building those deeper, more lasting abilities. It makes you wonder what kind of knowledge truly helps us grow. Have you ever walked into a classroom and seen a big, dark rectangle on the wall, maybe covered in white chalk dust? It's a blackboard, or sometimes a whiteboard. And here's the thing, while they still get used, it's a little like using a rotary phone in an age of smartphones. Blackboards were amazing tools for their time, a true leap forward centuries ago. Before them, teachers might have written on individual slates, or even just spoken everything, relying only on memory. The blackboard let everyone see the same information at once, making learning more public and efficient. But here's the problem. In a world full of screens, interactive displays, and the internet at our fingertips, relying heavily on a dusty old blackboard feels a bit out of step. Think about it this way. When you're writing a big report for school, do you reach for a quill and ink, or do you open a document on a computer? Both let you write, but the computer lets you edit easily, add pictures, research instantly, and share your work with a click. It's not that the quill is bad, but it's not designed for today's speed and complexity. So, when schools still lean on blackboards for most lessons, it hints at a larger issue. We live in a digital age where information flows constantly, and learning happens through dynamic, interactive experiences. Our world needs people who can navigate these digital spaces, not just read chalk on a board. It makes you wonder if we're truly preparing students for tomorrow, or if we're still looking backward. Learning is a journey forward, and the tools we use should help us see further. Not just retrace old steps, it's about equipping you for the future that's already here, not just the past. Have you ever noticed how different we all are, even in small ways? Some of us love drawing, others prefer playing sports, and maybe you're really good at figuring out puzzles. We all have our own favorite foods too. But here's the thing. When it comes to school, it often feels like everyone is expected to learn in exactly the same way. We sit in rows, listen to a teacher, read from the same books, and take the same tests. This idea of one-size-fits-all learning wasn't always how people thought about education. For a long time, learning was more personal, often one-on-one or in small groups. But then, a few hundred years ago, when factories started booming, people needed a new kind of school. The goal was to teach many, many kids at once, efficiently. So, schools were designed a bit like factories themselves to process lots of students through a standardized system. It made sense at the time for creating a workforce that could follow instructions, but it also meant that teaching methods became very uniform. Think about it like this. Imagine trying to teach everyone in your class to ride a bike. Some kids might learn best by watching someone else first. Others need to just hop on and try, falling a few times, but getting the feel for it. And some might need an adult to hold onto the seat for a while. If the teacher only allowed one method, say only watching videos, many kids would struggle even if they're perfectly capable of learning to ride. Here's what I found. Your brain is just as unique as your fingerprints. Some brains love visual information, some prefer listening, and others learn by doing, moving their bodies, or discussing ideas. So, when schools expect everyone to learn by sitting still and listening, it's like asking every single plant to grow in the exact same type of soil with the same amount of water and sunlight. Some will thrive, sure, but many others, equally strong and capable, might struggle to bloom because their specific needs aren't being met. and that's why it matters. It makes you wonder, what if school truly celebrated all the different ways our amazing brains work? Have you ever felt that nervous flutter in your stomach right before a big test? That feeling where you're cramming facts, just trying to remember everything, and hoping you don't forget anything important? Is a common feeling, and it points to a big problem in how modern schools often work. Here's the thing. Instead of truly loving a subject, instead of really understanding why something works or how history connects, we often get caught up in preparing for the next exam. The main goal shifts from deep learning to simply getting a good score. It's like being told you need to run a marathon, but all you're judged on is how fast you can tie your shoes. Tests started as a simple way to check what students knew. It seemed like a fair idea at first, but over time, especially with the rise of standardized testing, these exams became the main focus. They stopped being just a tool to see if you understood and became the only way to prove you did. And that's why it matters. Think about someone learning to play a musical instrument, like a guitar. A great musician doesn't just memorize scales for a test. They practice, they listen to music, they experiment with different sounds, and they play songs for the joy of it. Their learning comes from exploring, from making mistakes, and from the passion they feel for the music itself. But imagine if they only studied notes to pass a guitar theory test and never actually played. Would they truly know how to play? Our current system often pushes us to just pass the test, rather than deeply exploring the subject. All this energy spent on test anxiety, on the fear of not doing well, often overshadows the pure curiosity that makes learning wonderful. Maybe we should focus more on that curiosity, on the amazing journey of discovering new ideas, instead of just the finishing line of a grade. True learning is about growing, not just scoring. Have you ever felt like you're just moving along a conveyor belt at school? Like everyone your age goes through the same classes, learns the same things, and takes the same tests? It's a common feeling, and it's because modern schools often operate a lot like a factory line in a way. Here's the thing. Think about how factories work. Materials go in at one end, pass through different stations, and then finished products come out looking mostly the same. In this view, students are kind of like those materials. We enter school at a certain age, move from grade to grade, sit in different classrooms, those stations, and are taught specific subjects. The goal, originally, was to produce graduates with similar skills and knowledge, ready for the world. This idea of schooling grew popular during the Industrial Revolution, hundreds of years ago. Back then, societies needed people who could work in factories, following rules and doing repetitive tasks. So, schools were designed to teach discipline, obedience, and standardized knowledge, very much like training for an assembly line job. It made sense at the time to educate many people efficiently and prepare them for that kind of work. But here's the problem. Humans aren't products on an assembly line. Imagine a baker trying to make every cookie exactly the same, with no room for different flavors or shapes. Or a garden where every plant, from a tiny daisy to a tall sunflower, is forced to grow at the same speed and height. It just doesn't quite fit, does it? We're all unique, with different talents and ways of learning. So, when a system tries to make everyone fit into the same mold, it can feel like it's missing the point of who we truly are. It makes you wonder if there's a better way to let everyone's unique potential shine. Have you ever thought about what happens when you finally get your own money? Maybe from a part-time job or as a gift? It's exciting, right? But here's the thing. Schools often don't teach us much about how to handle that money wisely. Money management is simply knowing how to deal with your money well. It means understanding where your cash comes from, where it goes, and how to make it work for you over time. It's about more than just spending. It's about learning to save for things you want, budgeting so you don't run out, and even understanding basic ideas like why people take out loans or how a bank works. This idea of managing what you have isn't new. For thousands of years, long before money existed, people had to manage their resources. They learned to save food for the winter or trade extra crops for tools they needed. Managing what you have has always been a fundamental part of human life. Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to bake your favorite cookies. You have a set amount of flour, sugar, and chocolate chips. If you just dump everything in the bowl without measuring, or eat all the chocolate chips before they go into the mix, you probably won't get good cookies. Money is similar. It's like a set amount of ingredients for your future. If you don't measure your spending or follow a recipe for saving, you might run out of what you need for important things later on, or you might not be able to bake the life you imagine. When schools don't teach us these crucial skills, it's like sending us out into the world without a map for our finances. We might make mistakes that are hard to fix, or feel stressed and confused about money without really understanding why. Learning about money isn't just about big numbers or complicated math. It's about having control over your choices. It's about feeling more secure, building good habits, and finding a quiet kind of peace that comes from knowing you can handle what life throws at you. It helps you feel ready for your own journey. Have you ever felt like you're just one face in a huge crowd? Like your teacher is trying their best, but there are just too many other students to get to everyone? Here's the thing. Many modern classrooms are simply too big. This isn't just about feeling lost, it really impacts how well you can learn. When we talk about classes that are way too big, we mean rooms packed with a large number of students, sometimes 30 or more, all with one teacher. In this setup, it's really tough for teachers to give individual attention. Imagine a teacher trying to check everyone's understanding or answer all the different questions that pop up. It's almost impossible to reach every single student in a meaningful way during a class period. For a long time, the idea of learning was much more personal. Think about how people learned crafts or trades centuries ago. An apprentice would work directly with a master, maybe just one or two other students. That kind of close teaching meant the master knew exactly what each student needed help with and could explain things just for them. It wasn't about lecturing to a big group, but about guiding each person's unique journey of understanding. Consider this. Imagine you're trying to learn to play a new song on a guitar. If you're in a class with 40 other students and one guitar teacher, how much time can that teacher spend helping you with that tricky chord you're struggling with? Probably not much at all. But if it's just you and a few friends with the teacher, you get specific feedback, and you can ask all your questions without feeling like you're holding up the whole group. That direct attention helps you improve way faster. So when classes are too big, it's not just an inconvenience. It can sometimes feel like you're just going through the motions rather than deeply understanding the material. Maybe the best learning happens when we feel seen, heard, and truly valued in the space where we're meant to grow. Have you ever wondered why some lessons feel less about understanding something new and more about memorizing facts for a quiz? It's almost like your teacher knows exactly what questions are coming and wants you to have the answers ready. This feeling often comes from something called teaching to the test. Here's the thing. Teaching to the test means that teachers, instead of teaching a wide range of skills and knowledge, mainly focus on the specific information and types of questions that will appear on a big, standardized test. These tests became very important over the last few decades as a way to measure how well schools were doing. The idea was simple. If students scored high, the school must be doing a great job. This put a lot of pressure on schools and teachers to get good scores. But here's the problem. Imagine you wanted to learn how to cook. A good chef would teach you about different ingredients, how flavors work together, how to use kitchen tools safely, and even how to create your own recipes. But if that chef was only teaching to a taste test where you just had to make a perfect omelet, they might only teach you how to cook eggs. You'd get really good at omelets, but you wouldn't learn much else about cooking. You wouldn't learn about baking bread, or making a soup, or exploring spices. In the same way, when school becomes mostly about passing a test, it can narrow what students learn. Teachers might have less time to explore interesting topics, encourage deep thinking, or teach skills like problem solving that aren't easily measured on a bubble sheet. It shifts the focus from truly understanding and loving to learn, to just performing well on one specific day. And that's why it matters. Real learning, the kind that helps you navigate the world, is much bigger than any single score. It's about curiosity, exploration, and building skills that stick with you long after the test is forgotten. Have you ever stopped to really think about why our school year is set up the way it is? You know the drill. We start in late summer or early fall, go through the fall and winter, have a short spring break, and then finish up for a long summer. And it repeats, year after year, almost exactly the same. But here's the thing. This schedule isn't just how things have to be. The way our school calendar is structured actually comes from a very different time. A long time ago, many families lived on farms. Kids needed to be home during the summer to help with planting, harvesting, and taking care of crops. So, schools would often close down in the summer months so children could work. It made sense back then. for that way of life. But look around us today. Most of us don't live on farms anymore. Our world is constantly changing and moving forward. Think about your phone, for example. It gets updates all the time, right? New apps, better features, everything improves. You wouldn't want to use a phone from 100 years ago, even if it still worked. But the school calendar often feels like that old phone, doing the same old thing year after year, even when so much else has evolved. This fixed schedule means everyone learns at the same pace, regardless of how they learn best. It also means long breaks, where some students might forget things they learned, and then everyone has to cram to catch up again in the fall. We have a world that keeps finding new ways to do things, but our school schedule rarely adapts. It makes you wonder if sticking to this very old plan truly helps us learn and grow as much as we could in a modern world. Have you ever been in class, learning something and thought, when am I ever going to use this? It's a common feeling, right? We learn a lot of facts and formulas, but sometimes it feels like we're just solving problems from a textbook, not from life itself. Here's the thing. Modern school often doesn't give us enough real-world problems to work on. What does that mean? It means challenges that don't have a single perfect answer in the back of a book. They're messy, complicated, and often need you to think outside the box, just like problems in actual life. Think about it. A real-world problem might be figuring out how to reduce waste in your school cafeteria, or designing a way to help local homeless shelters, or even planting a community garden. For a long time, people learned by doing. If you wanted to be a carpenter, you didn't just read about wood, you worked with a carpenter, building things. If you wanted to be a healer, you helped a doctor, seeing real patients. This way of learning was all about solving real problems as they came up. But over time, as schools became more about preparing lots of students for factories or offices, the learning got more separated from actual doing. Imagine your bike gets a flat tire. The problem isn't solve for X. The problem is, how do I fix this tire with the tools I have or find someone who can? You might look up a video, ask a friend, or try different things. It's not just about knowing the parts of a bike. It's about putting that knowledge into action to fix a real situation. That's a real-world problem. In school, sometimes we learn the parts, but not always how to fix the tire. So when we miss out on these kinds of challenges in school, we don't just miss out on specific skills. We miss out on practicing how to think when things aren't clear. We miss out on being resourceful and creative when faced with an unknown. It's like we're preparing for a game by only studying the rule book instead of actually playing on the field and learning to adapt. And that's why it matters, because life outside of school is full of those messy, real problems, and we need practice solving them. Have you ever noticed how sometimes in school, it feels like you're just supposed to remember answers, not really come up with your own questions? Here's the thing. School is often set up to teach you facts, and facts are important, of course. But being told what to think goes a step further. It means you're given an idea or an opinion, and you're expected to accept it without questioning. It's like someone hands you a completed puzzle and says, "Here, this is how it looks," instead of giving you the pieces to figure it out yourself. For a long time, people just accepted whatever was taught to them, often by people in power or old traditions. But then, thinkers came along who said, wait a minute, what if we tried to figure things out for ourselves? This idea that it's important to think critically and challenge what you hear is a huge part of what helped humans discover new things and create better ways to live. It's about using your own brain to explore, not just echoing what someone else said. Think about it this way. Imagine your favorite TikTok creator says something is true or that a certain trend is cool. If you just agree and repeat it without thinking, is this actually true for me? Do I really think this is cool? Then you're just being told what to think. But if you pause, consider it, maybe even look it up, you're doing your own thinking. Or in a science class, if a teacher tells you a theory and you simply memorize it for the test without ever wondering, how did they figure that out? What if there's another way to see it? You're missing a big part of learning. The real magic happens not when you know all the answers, but when you know how to ask good questions. It's about being curious. It's about letting your mind wander and explore possibilities, even if they're different from what's usually said. When you think for yourself, you don't just learn about the world, you also learn a lot about who you are and what you truly believe. And that in the end, is a much richer way to experience everything. Ever feel like your lunch break is just a race against the clock? You barely sit down, and suddenly, it's time to go again. For many, school lunch often feels like a mad dash. This is one reason why parts of modern school feel a bit outdated. Here's the thing, a lunch break isn't just about eating. It's meant to be a real pause, a moment to rest your brain, digest your food, and connect with friends without feeling rushed. But when your break is only 20 or 25 minutes, you hardly have time for any of that. You grab your food, eat quickly, and then it's back to class. This speed doesn't just stress you out. It can mess with digestion and your focus later. Historically, and in many cultures, meals are important for connection and restoration. Think about how families gather for dinner, not just to eat, but to talk. Shortening school lunch breaks so much feels like we've forgotten this basic human need for a true break. It's a bit like trying to read a whole chapter in just 1 minute. You see the words, but you don't really understand or remember much. Your brain and body need more than a quick glance. When we don't get enough time to truly step away, our minds don't get a chance to reset. It's like a computer running too many programs without a restart. It slows down or freezes. Giving ourselves proper time to eat and unwind helps us come back to class feeling refreshed, ready to learn, and less anxious. Maybe a school day that truly values our well-being would offer more than just a speedy snack time. It would give us real space to breathe and just be. Ever notice how sometimes when you're trying to get school work done, the technology just fights you? Maybe you're trying to open a file and the computer just stares back, thinking really hard. Or you're trying to research for a project and the Wi-Fi acts like it's taking a very long nap. This isn't just annoying, it points to a bigger problem. Our school technology often feels stuck in the past. Here's the thing about modern learning. It's deeply connected to the internet and quick, reliable tools. Think about it. So much information, so many facts, so many ways to create and learn are online now. Back when your grandparents were in school, most learning happened with books and blackboards. They had libraries filled with paper. But today, so much of what we need to learn and explore is digital. If you can't access it easily, or if the tools you're using are constantly slowing you down, it's like trying to navigate a new city without a good map or GPS. You can try, but you'll get lost, and it will take forever. Imagine you're in science class, and you need to watch a quick video to understand a complex concept, like how a volcano erupts. But the video buffers every 5 seconds, or the old computer just freezes up. It wastes time, yes, but it also breaks your focus. It makes learning harder than it needs to be. You get frustrated, and that curiosity, that desire to understand, starts to fade. It's like trying to build a really cool Lego castle, but half your bricks are missing or broken. So, when schools hold on to outdated technology, it's not just about inconvenience. It's about limiting your ability to learn at the speed of the world around you. It limits your chances to explore, to create, and to truly connect with the vast knowledge available today. It's a quiet way of telling you that the future can wait, when really, it's already here, and it's moving fast. Have you ever studied really hard for a test, crammed all night, and then a week later felt like all that information just vanished? It's a common feeling. It shows how modern school can sometimes be outdated, pushing us to memorize facts, not truly understand them. Here's the thing. Memorizing is like taking a quick photo of a page. You have the image, but you might not know what the words mean or how they connect. Understanding, though, is like reading that page, thinking about it, and seeing how its ideas fit into your own life. When you memorize, you hold facts for a short time, usually just until the test. But when you understand, those ideas become part of you. They stick around. Long ago, schools often used rote learning. Students repeated things over and over, like times, tables, or definitions. This helped remember, but an ancient Greek thinker once said real wisdom wasn't just collecting facts. It's about seeing how facts fit together like puzzle pieces to make a bigger picture. That's understanding. Imagine you're baking a cake. You could memorize the recipe, add flour, then sugar, then eggs. You might get it right once. But if you don't understand why certain ingredients go together, or what happens if you overmix, you can't fix mistakes or try new things, you're just following instructions. If you understand the science behind baking, like why yeast makes bread rise, you can bake anything. And that's why this matters. When you only memorize, you learn to pass a test, then often forget. But when you truly understand something, it stays with you. It helps you think better, solve new problems, and makes learning exciting, not just a chore. It builds a deeper connection to knowledge, a powerful thing for your life. Have you ever thought about what kind of job you might have when you're older? It's a big question, right? But here's the thing. Many of the jobs that will be common in 10 or 20 years might not even exist today. Think about that for a second. This idea of jobs that don't exist yet means that the world of work changes really, really fast. New technologies pop up, new problems need solving, and suddenly there are roles people never even imagined. For example, not so long ago, there was no such thing as a social media manager or an app developer. Those jobs were created because of new inventions and how people started using them. It's like how 100 years ago, kids wouldn't dream of being an airplane pilot. They might dream of being a train conductor or a farmer. Now, being a pilot is a normal job to think about. So, how does school prepare you for something that's not even on the map yet? It's kind of like learning to sail a ship, but you don't know if you'll be sailing on a lake, an ocean, or even in space someday. You need to learn how to read the wind, how to tie knots, and how to fix things when they break. These are skills that are useful no matter what kind of ship you're on. What this means for us is that school shouldn't just be about memorizing facts for jobs we know today. Instead, it should help us build skills that are always useful. Things like knowing how to solve problems, how to think creatively, how to work well with others, and how to keep learning new things. If you can learn new things quickly and adjust to change, you'll be ready for whatever the future throws at you. Even jobs we can't name right now. Is about being flexible and curious, no matter what the world brings next. Have you ever walked into a really old building, one that smells a bit musty or has chipped paint? Sometimes our school buildings can feel just like that. And here's the thing, it's not just how they look, it's about how well they work or don't work for us today. Many schools were built a long time ago, perhaps even before your grandparents were born. Back then, the idea was often to make learning feel like an assembly line. Classrooms were set up for one teacher to talk and students to listen, mostly in rows. This made sense when schools prepared kids for factory jobs, where everyone did the same thing. It fit a different time and purpose, but our world isn't like that anymore. We learn differently. We use technology, we work in groups, and we need space to create and share ideas. Imagine doing your homework on an old flip phone from 2005 when everyone else has a smartphone. That flip phone isn't broken, but it's just not made for how we live and connect today. It simply doesn't fit modern needs. It's similar with some school buildings. They might have small classrooms with few power outlets for laptops, or labs not updated in years. There might not be flexible spaces for group work, or quiet spots for individual focus. Bad lighting or stuffy air also matters. When a building feels old and tired, it can make us feel old and tired too. It's harder to feel excited when surroundings don't support how you learn best. So, when we talk about outdated school buildings, it's really about this. Do they help us grow and learn for the future, or do they hold us back? A building, in a way, shapes how we feel and what we can achieve inside its walls. We deserve spaces that make us feel inspired and ready for what's next. Have you ever felt like school is a bit like a preset menu, not a buffet? You know, where everyone gets the same dishes, whether they love pasta or really want a salad. Here's the thing. For a long time, schools have offered a pretty narrow set of subjects. It's like they decided what everyone must learn, and there aren't many paths to choose from beyond that. This means if you're super interested in coding, or maybe you dream of becoming a master baker, those deep dives often happen outside of class, if at all. Think about it this way. Hundreds of years ago, when the idea of public schooling first really took hold, the world was a different place. Most people went into farming or crafts, and schools were set up to teach basic skills like reading, writing, and math for those common jobs. There wasn't as much need for lots of specialized subjects. The goal was to create a shared foundation to make sure everyone had the same basic knowledge, and that's why it matters today. That old model, designed for a different time, still shapes how we learn. It's a bit like when you try to pick a new game to play. Imagine there are thousands of games out there. Action, puzzle, strategy, creative building. but your gaming system only lets you play 5 specific ones, and everyone has to play those same 5. You might like 1 or 2, but what if your real passion is for a game that isn't even available? It's not about those 5 games being bad. It's about not having the choice to explore what truly excites you. So, while we all need a good basic understanding of the world, maybe true learning feels more natural, more alive, when we have the freedom to follow our own sparks. It's about finding the things that make your brain light up, not just ticking off boxes. And when school doesn't offer many paths to follow those sparks, it can feel less like an adventure and more like just another task. It makes you wonder what amazing things we might miss out on. Have you ever been in trouble for something and felt like the punishment just didn't fit? Like it had nothing to do with what you actually did, or it didn't help you learn anything? That feeling, that disconnect, is at the heart of punishments that don't make sense. Here's the thing, for a punishment to be truly effective, it should ideally teach you something. It should help you understand why your action was wrong and guide you toward doing better next time. But when a consequence feels random, or too harsh, or completely unrelated to the mistake, it stops being a lesson and starts feeling like just a way to make you feel bad. Think about it this way. For hundreds of years, people mostly believed that punishment was about making someone pay for what they did. If you broke something, you had to fix it or replace it. If you hurt someone, maybe you got hurt back. It was a simple kind of justice. But as time went on, people started asking, what's the point of this? Is it just to get even? Or is it to make sure this doesn't happen again? Here's a common example. Imagine you forget your homework. A typical punishment might be an after-school detention. But does sitting silently in a room for an hour really teach you how to be more organized? Or does it just make you feel bored and resentful? Instead, what if the consequence was directly linked to the mistake? Maybe you have to spend that time making a solid plan for how you remember your assignments, or you have to email the teacher your notes from that class. That kind of consequence actually helps you build the skills you need. It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet by yelling at it instead of getting a wrench. When punishments are logical and connected to the mistake, they can actually help us grow. But when they feel unfair or pointless, they can just make us feel angry or confused. And that doesn't help anyone learn. It's about helping people understand and improve, not just making them suffer. Have you ever wondered why, in a world full of keyboards and screens, we still sometimes learn cursive writing? It might seem a bit old-fashioned, like something from your grandparents' time. But there's more to it than just signing your name on a paper. So, here's the thing about cursive. It's a style of handwriting where the letters flow into each other, connecting smoothly. Think of it like a dance for your pen, where each letter holds hands with the next. For hundreds of years, this was how most people wrote everything, from important legal documents to simple letters sent across the country. It was considered the proper, educated way to write, and it also helped people write faster before typewriters were common. Learning it was a basic skill, much like learning how to use a computer is today, and that's why it matters. Being able to read cursive means you can unlock a lot of history. Imagine finding an old letter from your great-grandparent, or looking at a copy of the Declaration of Independence. Those are written in cursive. Knowing how to read it connects you directly to the past, letting you hear voices from long ago in their own handwriting. It's like having a secret key to old stories and important moments. Beyond history, learning cursive also works your brain in a different way. It helps with fine motor skills, which is the precise movement of your hands and fingers. It's a skill that teaches your hand and eye to work together in a coordinated way, similar to how playing a musical instrument or drawing can train your brain. So, while we might type most things now, understanding cursive is about more than just old letters. It's about appreciating different forms of communication, connecting with history, and even about the unique ways our brains learn and grow. It reminds us that there are many valuable ways to put thoughts onto paper. Have you ever thought about what you really love to do? Maybe you like to draw, play an instrument, build things, or write stories. Here's the thing. Modern school schedules often leave little room for those activities. We spend hours in classes, then more on homework, and then studying for tests. It feels like there's simply no time left for anything that truly sparks our interest. But what happens when we don't have time for hobbies? Hobbies aren't just fun, they're about discovery. They let you explore who you are outside of textbooks and grades. When you pursue a hobby, You learn things not on any school curriculum. You learn patience, problem solving, creativity, and how to work with others. It's a different kind of learning, one that comes from within you, not from a required class. Think about it. For a long time, learning wasn't just about sitting in rows and memorizing facts. People often learned by doing things. Apprenticeships taught trades, families worked on crafts, and stories were passed down. Education was woven into daily life, including skills that weren't always academic. Now, it feels like everything focuses on what fits into a testable subject. Imagine your mind is like a rich, fertile garden. If you only plant one type of crop, like corn or tomatoes, it won't be as vibrant or healthy as a garden with many different kinds of plants. Hobbies are like those different plants. They add variety, richness, and depth to your mind and spirit. They help you grow in ways schools sometimes can't. So, when schools are packed with no space for personal passions, we might be missing something important. We might miss the chance to discover unique talents or find deep joy in creation. A life well lived isn't just about knowing facts. It's also about knowing yourself and finding what makes your spirit sing. Sometimes, that singing comes from a quiet hobby in your own free time. Have you ever tried to learn how to do something really new, like play a guitar or fix a leaky faucet? Just by reading about it, you can read all the instructions, look at all the diagrams, and even watch videos. But here's the thing. Until your fingers are on the strings, or your hands are actually turning a wrench, it's hard to truly get it. Our schools for a long time have mostly focused on learning from books. This idea comes from a time when books were a main way to pass down knowledge. People believed that if you memorized facts, formulas, and histories, you would become educated. And yes, reading is super important. It opens up worlds and ideas, but there's a big difference between knowing about something and actually knowing how to do something. Think about riding a bike. You could read a whole library of books on balance, pedaling technique, and steering. You could study the physics of it for hours. But would that make you a bike rider? Not really. The only way to truly learn is to get on the bike, wobble, fall a few times, push off, and keep trying. Your body learns, your mind adjusts, and suddenly, you're riding. It's an experience that can't be fully explained or understood just from words on a page. Many subjects in school, from science experiments to writing an essay, feel a bit like reading about bike riding without ever getting on the bike. We learn facts, but we don't always get to experiment, create, or fail in ways that help us deeply understand. The real lessons, the ones that stick, often come from doing, from making mistakes, and from seeing how things actually work in the real world, not just how they look in a textbook. It makes you wonder if we're missing a big piece of what it means to truly learn and grow. Have you ever really thought about how much time we spend sitting down at school? It's not just a little bit of sitting, it's often most of the school day. From the first bell to the last, we're usually in a chair, looking at a screen or a book. This idea that learning happens best when you're completely still, tucked away at a desk, is pretty common in modern schools. But here's the thing, our bodies aren't really built for that. For thousands of years, humans learned by doing. They explored, built things, hunted, and gathered food. Their bodies were constantly active. Even ancient thinkers like the Greek philosophers often walked around while they shared ideas and discussed big questions. Our bodies are designed for movement, for exploring. They are not really made for staying still in one spot for hours and hours. Think about when you're trying to remember something important, or if you're just bored in a long class. Sometimes pacing around helps, right? Or how your brain can feel foggy after sitting through a really long lecture. That's because movement helps wake up your brain. It gets the blood flowing, bringing oxygen and energy to help you think clearly. It's like trying to power a video game with a low battery. Your brain needs that energy boost that movement can provide. When you sit too much, your body and mind can feel sluggish. So, here's what I found. Maybe true learning isn't just about quiet thinking, but about a connection between our minds and our moving bodies. It makes you wonder if we would understand more and even feel better if we allowed ourselves to move a little more while we learn. Have you ever stopped to think about how every single school day pretty much looks the same? From the moment the first bell rings until the very last one, it's a fixed plan. You often have math, then history, then science, always in the same order. Even lunch is usually at the exact same time every day. This kind of super fixed daily schedule is something we've just accepted as part of school. But here's what I found. It wasn't always this way, and it might not be the best way for us to learn today. You see, this very strict, unchanging schedule really started to take hold during a time when factories were becoming super important. Schools began to look a lot like these factories. The idea was to prepare young people for jobs where you did the same task at the same time all day long, like on an assembly line. It was all about making things efficient, like a production line for knowledge. But learning isn't really like building a car piece by piece on a schedule that never changes. Our brains don't always work that way. Think about how you learn things outside of school. If you're really into drawing one day, you might spend hours lost in it, letting your creativity flow. The next day, maybe you discover a new video game and spend all your free time learning its complex rules and strategies. You don't say, okay, it's 3 p.m., time to learn a new game rule now. Your brain often becomes most creative and focused when it follows its own natural rhythm for certain tasks. It's a bit like a gardener who plants seeds when the soil is just right for each type of plant, not just because the clock says so. So when school forces us into the exact same routine, day after day, it might miss out on those special moments when our minds are truly open and ready to explore a certain topic deeply. It makes learning feel less like a natural adventure and more like a train ride where every stop is predetermined and never changes, no matter what. What if learning could shift and change a bit, just like our interests, energy, and the world around us do? Have you ever felt a huge rush of something, maybe super angry, really sad, or incredibly excited, and not quite knowing what to do with it? Like it's just swirling around inside you? Here's the thing. While school teaches us tons about math, history, and science, it doesn't always teach us much about our own inner world, our emotions. This isn't just about being nice. It's about emotional intelligence. This means understanding what you're feeling, why, and how to manage those feelings in a healthy way. For a long time, many thought emotions were separate from smart thinking. They believed feelings just got in the way. But here's what happened. We know now that's not true. Our feelings and thoughts are completely connected. Think of it like this. If your body gets sick, you learn how to care for it. You learn about healthy food. But what about when your mind feels upset? We don't get a clear how-to guide for that in many classrooms. Imagine you're trying to work on a group project and one person isn't helping. You feel frustrated, maybe even angry. If you don't understand that feeling, you might just lash out or silently stew, which doesn't help anyone. But if you've learned to recognize that frustration, you can think, okay, this feeling means I need to communicate calmly, or this means I need a break. This might work for you. It's like learning to read a map of your own internal landscape. So when we talk about school being outdated, it's partly because it often misses this vital part of being human. Learning about our feelings isn't just a soft skill. It's a basic, powerful skill for living a balanced life. It helps you understand yourself and others better. It's about building a stronger, more complete version of you, ready for whatever comes next. And that's why it matters. Have you ever noticed how much work your teachers do beyond just teaching? It's like they're trying to do 10 jobs at once. See, teachers not having enough help means they're often alone in a classroom with many students. They have to teach, grade papers, plan lessons, deal with behavior, talk to parents, and sometimes even act as counselors or social workers. There usually aren't enough extra adults, like teaching assistants or support staff, to lend a hand. So, they get stretched really thin. Think about how people used to learn. Maybe a small group with a wise elder, or apprentices learning from a master. There was often more individual attention, or at least a clearer focus on one task. As schools grew bigger, the idea was that one teacher could manage a large group. But here's the thing. Human connection and individual needs don't change just because class sizes grow. Over time, we've asked teachers to do more and more, without giving them more support. It's almost like we expect them to be superheroes, which isn't fair. Imagine you're trying to build a really complex Lego castle, but you're only allowed to use one hand, and you also have to answer the phone, make dinner, and check your email all at the same time. You might get the castle built, but it'll take forever, be super stressful, and maybe not even be as good as it could be. That's a bit how it feels for a teacher who doesn't have enough help. They are trying to build up each student's knowledge and skills, but with so many other demands, it's incredibly hard to give everyone the focus they need. When teachers are overwhelmed, it's not just hard for them. It means they might not have the time to really see each student, to understand what makes them tick, or to help them with a tough concept in that moment. It's a quiet challenge that affects everyone in the classroom. It reminds us that learning isn't just about facts, it's about connection. And connections need time and care to grow. And that's why it matters. Have you ever felt like some of the rules at school just don't quite fit? Maybe they seem a little bit old-fashioned, like wearing a fancy hat indoors or using a rotary phone. Well, sometimes school rules are like that. We call these outdated rules from another time. They're not bad rules necessarily, but they were created for a world that looked very different from ours today, and they haven't really caught up. Think about it this way. A long time ago, when many of our modern schools were first being shaped, the world was changing fast because of something called the Industrial Revolution. Factories were popping up everywhere. To work in these factories, people needed to be good at following strict instructions, sitting still for long periods, and doing the same tasks over and over. So schools were designed to prepare kids for that kind of world. Rules about sitting quietly in rows, raising your hand for everything, or learning facts by heart without questioning them made a lot of sense back then. They trained young people to become dependable workers in a factory setting. But our world today isn't primarily about factories anymore. It's about ideas, creativity, teamwork, and solving new problems. So, if we're still following rules made for a different era, it can feel a bit strange. It's like trying to navigate a city with a paper map when you have a super smart GPS in your pocket. The map still works, but it's not the most helpful tool for how we move around now. Or imagine trying to build a modern app using a very old computer program that can only do simple math. It gets the job done, but it limits what you can create. The real question isn't whether rules are good or bad. It's whether they still help us grow and learn in the best possible way for our lives right now. When rules get stuck in the past, they can hold us back from exploring new ways of thinking and doing. It makes you wonder, what kind of rules would we make if we started fresh, designing school for the world we live in today and for the world we're building tomorrow? It's a quiet thought, but an important one to consider for our learning journeys. Have you ever noticed how often grown-ups, or even your teachers, talk about college? It's like this big, shiny goal everyone is supposed to aim for. This feeling that going to college is the only real path to a good life is what we call the pressure to go to college. It's a strong push you might feel from your family, friends, or even from society itself. People believe that to get a good job, make good money, or even just be a respected adult, you absolutely must have a college degree. For a long time, college was mostly for a small group of people. But over the past century, more and more people started going. It slowly became the expected next step after high school, almost like a default setting for your future. The idea grew that a degree was the golden ticket to success. But here's the thing. Imagining everyone has to go to college is a bit like saying there's only one kind of tool in a toolbox. If you want to build a house, sure, a hammer is useful, but you also need a saw, a screwdriver, maybe a level. Different jobs need different tools. In life, different dreams need different kinds of learning. You might want to be a brilliant chef, a skilled electrician, or an amazing video game designer. Many of these paths involve serious learning and dedication, but they don't always require a 4-year university degree. Sometimes, learning hands-on through a trade school, an apprenticeship, or even starting your own small business can be just as powerful, if not more so, for your specific goals. So, as you think about your own future, remember that success isn't a one-size-fits-all plan. It's about figuring out what truly excites you and finding the best way to get there. There are so many ways to learn, grow, and contribute to the world, and each one can lead to a rich and meaningful life. Your journey is yours to discover. Okay, so imagine you finally get your first job, maybe at a local store or helping out a neighbor. You get your paycheck, and it looks like a good amount of money. But then, when you actually get the cash, it's a little less than you expected. Ever wonder why that happens? Here's the thing. A piece of that money often goes towards something called taxes. Simply put, taxes are money we pay to the government. It's how we pay for things we all use, like roads, schools, and fire departments. When everyone in a neighborhood chips in a little, that shared money helps everyone. It's a way for communities to work together for common good. This idea of contributing to the group is very old. People have always paid for shared needs, from ancient city walls to king's armies. It's not just about giving money away, it's about being part of the system that keeps society running smoothly. Here's a way to think about it. Imagine your school needs new basketballs for gym class or new science equipment. If every student contributed just a small amount, everyone would benefit. But what if you never learned how to contribute or why it was important? What if you didn't know how to do it? It would be confusing and stressful to figure all that out on your own as an adult. It's like being handed the keys to a car but never taught how to drive it. So, when we say modern school is outdated, one reason is it often doesn't teach us these real-world money skills. Understanding taxes isn't just about numbers. It's about understanding how our society works, where our money goes, and what our responsibilities are as citizens. It's about being ready to manage your own money and help your community. It helps us feel more connected to the world around us. Do you ever just stare at the clock, waiting for class to end, or does your mind totally drift off? Here's the thing. That intense boredom in school isn't always about you. It often points to how our brains are built to learn versus how modern school asks us to. Boredom, the kind that makes you restless and tired, happens when your mind isn't getting enough meaningful input. It's not just having nothing to do. It's having something that feels pointless or too repetitive. For most of history, people learned by doing. Kids watched, helped, explored. They were active, curious, and learned what they needed. But schools changed. They became places where many students sit quietly, listening to one person talk. Often, subjects don't feel connected to our lives. This is a very different way to get information. Imagine learning skateboarding by only sitting in a classroom, watching videos, and reading a textbook. You'd get incredibly bored, right? Your body wants to try it, to fall, and get back up. Your brain learns best by experiencing, messing around, making mistakes, and discovering things for itself. So when you're feeling that deep boredom in class, it might not be because you're not smart or trying hard enough. It could just be your natural human brain telling you it's hungry for a different kind of learning. It wants something more active, more real, more connected to how you naturally explore. That feeling is just your brain wanting purpose and engagement. Imagine trying to learn about cars today, but only using books from the 1950s. Sounds a bit off, right? Here's the thing. Our world is shaped by new tools and ideas every single day. From our phones to how doctors work, technology changes everything around us. But sometimes, schools just don't keep up. This means that while the world outside is buzzing with new tech, many classrooms are still teaching almost the same way they did decades ago. They might not use smartboards or laptops or even teach software common in jobs today. It's like learning to write by only using a quill and ink when everyone else has moved on to pens or keyboards. Think about it historically. A long time ago, people learned by listening to elders or reading handwritten scrolls. Then, the printing press changed everything. Books were made easily, spreading knowledge fast. It completely changed how people learned. Every new tool, from the printing press to the internet, has pushed learning forward. Tools help us do things better. New tech isn't just about cool gadgets. It's about giving you better ways to think, explore, and create. Imagine a chef trying to cook a fancy meal but only using tools from the 1800s. No blenders, no electric ovens, just open fires and old knives. They might make something, but it would take forever, and it probably wouldn't be as good as what a modern kitchen could produce. It's like that with learning. If you're only using old methods when there are digital research tools, simulations, or online teamwork tools, you miss out on learning more deeply and efficiently. So, when schools don't bring in new tech, it's not just about missing a fancy screen or cool app. It's about missing new ways to understand the world, to practice skills that matter now, and to connect with information in exciting ways. It makes learning feel stuck, like we're preparing for a world that's moved on. And that's why it matters. Learning should be alive, growing, and ready for what's next. Have you ever noticed how much of our day is spent interacting with others? We talk to friends, family, teachers, and even people we just meet. But here's the thing. While school teaches us a lot about math or history, it often doesn't spend much time teaching us how to truly talk to people well. This isn't just about giving a speech, it's about everyday communication. It means knowing how to listen carefully, how to share your ideas clearly without being rude, and how to work through disagreements. These are often called people skills, and they're really important for almost everything we do in life. For thousands of years, before big schools, people learned these skills naturally. Kids would help their families, work alongside neighbors, and just be part of their community. They learned by doing, by watching, and by interacting all day. Think about ancient Greek thinkers, like Socrates. His whole way of teaching was by talking, asking questions, and having deep conversations. That back and forth was the main lesson. Now, imagine you're on a school project. You might know all the answers, but if you can't explain your ideas to your group or listen to what they're saying, the project might not go well. It's like a sports team. You can be the best player, but if you can't talk and listen to your teammates, the team won't win. Good communication is key. So while we learn many facts, we might miss building skills that help us connect, understand each other, and solve real problems together. Being able to truly talk with others, to really listen and share, isn't just about grades. It's about building a life, making strong friendships, and feeling connected to the world around you. And that's a lesson everyone needs. Have you ever hit that point in the school year where you just feel done? Like your brain is full and you can't possibly learn one more thing? It's not just you. Many people wonder if the modern school year, which often stretches for 9 months, is simply too long for how we learn best today. So here's the thing. Our school year structure isn't really based on modern learning science or what's best for kids now. Believe it or not, the long summer break, and thus the long school year, really came from a time when most families worked in farming. Kids were needed at home to help plant and harvest crops. School was designed to work around that, allowing a long stretch off during the summer. But what about now? Most of us aren't working on farms. And here's what I found. Our brains aren't like empty cups waiting to be filled endlessly. They're more like muscles that need time to rest and grow after a workout. Imagine trying to run a marathon every single day without a break. You'd get exhausted and probably injure yourself. Our minds work in a similar way. They need time to process information, to connect new ideas with old ones, and to simply be quiet and creative without constant input. Think about it. After a long day of classes, your brain needs downtime. It needs to play, to explore, to just be. When the school year goes on, with short breaks here and there, it can lead to burnout. Kids get tired, stressed, and sometimes they just stop really absorbing what's being taught. A long time ago, when schools first became common for everyone, during the time of big factories and many new jobs, the idea was to teach everyone the same things. The goal was to make sure people had a basic set of skills that employers needed. So the system was built to deliver knowledge in a very organized top-down way. Think of it like a recipe. Everyone gets the same ingredients, follows the same steps, and ideally ends up with the same dish. But here's the thing. You are not a dish, and you're definitely not a factory worker from 100 years ago. You're a unique person, full of your own interests, questions, and ways of understanding the world. Imagine you love learning about space, but all your science classes are about chemistry. Or maybe you learn best by doing hands-on projects, but most of your learning is from textbooks and lectures. It's like trying to teach a fish to climb a tree. It might try, but it won't really thrive, and it won't feel good about itself. When you get to choose what you learn, even just a little bit, it changes everything. It sparks something inside you. When you're truly curious about a topic, your brain works harder, and you remember so much more. This isn't just about fun, it's about deeper learning. Giving students a voice in their education is about trusting that they know, at some level, what lights up their own minds. When you have a say, learning stops feeling like a chore and starts feeling like an adventure that's truly your own. Maybe the best learning doesn't come from being told what to think, but from discovering what you want to think about. Have you ever felt like school sometimes feels less like a place to explore and learn, and more like a place you're just told to be, with very strict rules? It's a common feeling, and it's not about hating learning itself. Here's the thing. When people say school feels like a prison, they aren't saying it's a literal jail. Instead, they're talking about the feeling of being confined, controlled, and having very little freedom or choice. Think about it. There are bells telling you exactly when to start and stop, even if you're in the middle of an interesting thought. You have to ask permission to go to the bathroom. You sit in rows, often for hours, and you're told exactly what to learn, when to learn it, and how to prove you learned it. This rigid structure can make people feel like their time isn't really their own, and that their natural curiosity is being pushed aside for a preset plan. A long time ago, when modern schools were first designed, it was during a time called the Industrial Revolution. Factories were popping up everywhere, and they needed workers who could follow orders, show up on time, and do the same tasks over and over. So, schools were set up in a similar way, like a factory for minds, where everyone learned the same things at the same speed. It was about creating obedient citizens and workers. But here's the problem. People aren't machines. We're natural explorers. Imagine you're playing an amazing video game, but instead of choosing your own quests or exploring the open world, you're constantly forced down a single, narrow path. You can't wander off, can't try different things, and can't discover secrets on your own. It takes away the fun of discovery, doesn't it? That's a bit like how school can feel when it's too controlled. This feeling isn't about being lazy or not wanting to learn. It's about our deep human need for independence, for having some say in our own lives, and for following our own questions. True learning often happens best when we're curious and free to explore, not when we're simply told what to do. Have you ever stopped to think about how most of your school subjects have just one main teacher? You learn English from one person, math from another, and history from a third. It's pretty much how schools work everywhere these days. But here's the thing. The world is full of different ways to see things, and knowledge itself is so vast, like a giant, beautiful forest. Each person who explores that forest will find different paths and notice different trees. For a long, long time, learning wasn't always set up this way. Think about the famous thinkers in ancient Greece, or even craftspeople from centuries ago. A young person learning to be a builder wouldn't just have one building teacher. They might learn how to lay foundations from one master, how to carve stone from another, and how to design roofs from a third. They'd also learn from older apprentices, from books, and by observing many different projects. People often soaked up wisdom from many different sources, not just one voice. And this is important because every teacher, no matter how great, has their own strengths, their own experiences, and their own favorite ways of explaining things. One teacher might make history feel like a thrilling story, while another makes you understand the deep reasons behind events. If you only ever heard history from one of them, you'd miss out on the other's special way of seeing it. Think about trying to solve a really tricky riddle. If only one friend helps you, you get their best guess. But what if you ask 3 different friends? Each one might approach the riddle from a totally different angle. One friend might see a pattern, another remembers a similar problem, and a third just tries brand new ideas. Together, their different ways of thinking often make it much easier and faster to find the answer. Learning is a lot like that riddle. When you only hear one person's take on a subject, you're getting just one valuable perspective. But when you get to listen to many different people with their unique insights and ways of understanding, your own learning doesn't just grow bigger. It gets much richer, deeper, and more colorful. It helps you weave together your own understanding of the world, seeing things in more complete and insightful ways. This broader view helps you truly build your own solid ideas. Think about your school hallways. What do you hear when classes are in session? Often, it's a calm, quiet, a distant teacher's voice maybe. It feels orderly, right? But here's the thing. Sometimes, that quiet tells a different story. For a long time, people thought the best learning happened in silence. They believed quiet meant students were focused, just listening. This idea came from a time when schools were set up like factories. Imagine a factory floor. You want things to run smoothly, quietly. Workers do their individual tasks. In this view, students were like those workers, sitting quietly, taking in information. They were like empty cups waiting to be filled. So, quiet hallways became a sign of a good school, a place where everything was controlled. But think about how you really learn outside of school. If you're building something with friends, there's usually talking, laughing, maybe some debate. If you're figuring out a new game, there's often excited chatter. Scientists working in a lab are rarely silent. There's collaboration, questions, even loud aha moments. Real learning, the kind that sticks, often involves some noise. It means asking questions out loud, sharing ideas, talking through mistakes. So, when hallways are always quiet, it makes you wonder, is that quiet a sign of deep focus, or is something missing? Maybe there isn't enough open discussion or free movement of ideas. Maybe there's not enough joyful, messy collaboration happening. True learning isn't always silent. A little more hum and buzz in the halls might mean more brains are truly active. The sounds we hear or don't hear can tell us a lot about what's really happening. Have you ever thought about how different everyone is? Some people love math, others can't get enough of art. Some learn best by listening, others by doing. It's like we all have our own unique way of seeing the world and taking in new ideas. But here's the thing. Our modern school system was mostly built a long time ago, during a time when factories were a big deal. The idea was to make learning efficient, like an assembly line, where everyone moved at the same pace and learned the same things in the same way. The problem is, people aren't products on an assembly line. This old way of thinking means that school, as it is, often struggles to fit everyone perfectly. Imagine trying to wear the same size shoe as everyone else in your class. For some, it would fit just right. For others, it would be too tight or too loose or just plain uncomfortable. Learning can feel that way too. A student who thrives by discussing ideas might struggle sitting quietly, taking notes. Someone who learns by building things might get bored just reading from a textbook. It's not that school is bad, or that the people who designed it meant for it to be uncomfortable. It's just that trying to create one system that works for hundreds of millions of unique brains is incredibly hard. And that's why it matters. If a shoe doesn't fit, it's not the foot's fault. It just means you need a different shoe. In the same way, if the current school system doesn't quite fit how your brain works, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just highlights that there are many paths to learning and growing, and one single path won't work perfectly for every single person on Earth. Ever think about how big the world is and how many different ways people live in it? Sometimes in school, we don't spend enough time learning about cultures that are different from our own. Here's the thing. Culture isn't just about what language people speak or what food they eat. It's about their history, their art, their beliefs, and the way they see the world. When schools don't really teach us about these things, it's like we're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. We end up only knowing our own small corner. For a long time, people lived far apart. It was harder to know about others. But today, the world is connected through the internet, travel, and even the food we buy. Think about how ancient thinkers always sought knowledge, trying to understand everything around them. Learning about different cultures is just like that. But for people, it helps us see that there isn't just one right way to do things. And that's why it matters. It helps us understand each other better, which can lead to more peace and less conflict. Imagine your favorite game. Maybe it's a video game or a sport. What if you only ever learned the rules for one character or one position and never found out about all the others? You wouldn't really understand the whole game, would you? You wouldn't see all the cool strategies or different ways to play. Not learning about other cultures is kind of like that. You miss out on the amazing variety of human experience. You don't see the full picture of what people are capable of or how much beauty exists in different traditions. So when we don't explore these differences, we miss out on a lot. We miss out on new ideas, new ways of thinking, and even new friends. It's like living in a house with only one window open when there are beautiful gardens and bustling streets all around. Learning about others helps us grow, not just in knowledge, but in kindness and empathy too. It reminds us that everyone has a story, and those stories can make our own lives richer and more complete. Have you ever felt like school is mostly about getting the highest grades possible? Like every test, every assignment is just a step towards that perfect score, that shiny A+? Here's the thing. Modern schools often push this idea really hard. It's like we're on a constant race to collect perfect numbers. And sometimes, the actual learning gets lost in the rush. This intense focus on perfect scores means we often spend time just memorizing facts for a test. We don't always truly understand why those facts matter. Think about how factories work. They try to produce as many perfect items as fast as possible. Schools, in a way, started to measure student output through grades, so a perfect score became the perfect product. But it wasn't always like this. For a long time, learning was more about gaining skill or understanding a topic deeply. People learned for the sake of knowing. Imagine you love to draw. You spend hours practicing, trying new ways to make your art better. You do it because it's fun, because you want to express yourself. Now, what if someone told you your drawing was only good if it got a perfect 100 from a judge? If it didn't, you failed. Suddenly, the joy might disappear. You might stop experimenting and just try to draw exactly what you think the judge wants, even if it's boring to you. That's a bit like what happens when the push for perfect scores takes over. We might stop exploring ideas that truly interest us. Instead, we just focus on what gets us that top mark. It can make school feel more like a competition than a place to grow and discover. Maybe real learning isn't just about a number on a report card. Maybe it's about the journey of trying, understanding, and even making mistakes along the way. When you think about school, you probably imagine subjects like math or history, but what about learning to cook a simple meal? Here's the thing. Cooking might seem like just a chore, but it's packed with practical lessons our old school systems often miss. It's not just about recipes. It's about understanding ingredients, how they work, and how to feed yourself. Humans have cooked for thousands of years. It's one of our oldest skills. Our ancestors learned by doing, experimenting with fire and food. Cooking helped early humans bond, share, and evolve. It's a core part of being human, passed down through generations, connecting us to an ancient rhythm of life, far older than any classroom. And that's why it matters. When you cook, you're doing science, seeing how heat changes food, or how ingredients react. You're doing math, measuring, scaling recipes. You're problem solving. What if you're missing something? You're also being creative, tasting, adjusting, making something new. It's like a delicious experiment you get to eat. Think about baking cookies. You measure flour, sugar, butter. That's math. You mix them, watch them bubble and rise. That's chemistry. If they come out too flat, you figure out why. That's problem solving. When they're done, you share them, building connections. It's a simple act full of quiet meaning. So, learning to cook is more than just a kitchen skill. It's about independence, understanding where your food comes from, and caring for yourself and those you love. It teaches patience, resourcefulness, and the joy of creating something nourishing. It's a fundamental lesson in being human, right in your own kitchen, vital for life outside school. Have you ever thought about how much we use screens and keyboards in our daily lives? But then in school, it's often back to paper and pencils for almost everything. It's like stepping into a different time. Here's the thing. Schools still rely heavily on old ways of doing things, even when the world outside has changed so much. This isn't about saying paper is bad. It's about whether it's still the best way to learn and create for all tasks in a modern world. For hundreds of years, paper and pencils were amazing tools. Before that, people carved on stone or wrote on scrolls. Each time, new writing tools made it easier to share ideas. The printing press made books common, and that changed everything for learning. So, throughout history, how we write and learn has always been tied to the tools we use. But then came computers and the internet. Now, we can type, edit, and share our work instantly with people across the globe. Think about how you work on a group project outside of school. You probably use Google Docs or something similar, right? Everyone can work on the same document at the same time, making changes and seeing what others are doing. Imagine if an architect still drew all their blueprints by hand, or if a musician wrote every song note on paper without ever touching a digital instrument. It would be super slow, and they couldn't make changes easily or share their work with a team as fast. So, while there's a special feeling to putting pen to paper, it's also true that we live in a world where sharing and editing ideas instantly is common. When school sticks mostly to paper, we miss out on practicing skills that are used everywhere else. It makes you wonder, are we really preparing for the future when we're still mainly using tools from the past? It's not about ditching paper entirely, but about finding a better balance, making sure our learning tools match the way the world works today and tomorrow. Have you ever felt afraid to answer a question in class, even if you thought you knew the answer? Maybe it was because you worried about getting it wrong. Modern school often makes us feel like mistakes are bad. Every test, every assignment, every answer seems to be graded, and a wrong answer means fewer points. This way of doing things leaves very little space for us to mess up, to experiment, or to just try something out without the fear of failure hanging over our heads. Here's the thing. Learning isn't a straight line. It's often a bumpy road. Think about how babies learn to walk. They fall down over and over again. They stumble, they crawl, they bump into things, But each time they fall, they learn a little bit about balance, about their own strength, and about how their legs work. If we stop them from falling, they would never learn to walk on their own. Many smart people throughout history understood this. Inventors like Thomas Edison, who created the light bulb, famously tried thousands of times before he got it right. He didn't see those tries as failures, but as steps that showed him what didn't work. He said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." And that's a powerful idea. In the real world, whether you're learning to bake cookies, play a sport, or figure out a new video game, you make mistakes. You burn the first batch of cookies. You miss a shot. You press the wrong button. These aren't just errors. They're valuable lessons. So when school becomes a place where every wrong answer is a penalty, it can stop us from taking risks. It can make us think that being perfect is the only way to succeed. But true learning often comes from exploring, from being curious, and yes, from getting things wrong sometimes. It's about the journey of discovery, not just the final grade. Mistakes are like little clues helping us find the right path. Have you ever felt like your brain is just buzzing with too much going on? Or like a heavy blanket of worry is trying to cover you? Here's the thing. Everyone has mental health, just like everyone has physical health. It's about how we think, feel, and act every day. When we talk about not enough help, it means schools often aren't set up to truly support students when their minds feel unwell, when stress piles up, or when big emotions become hard to handle. For a long time, talking about feelings like sadness, anxiety, or stress was kind of a secret. People were expected to just push through it, to tough it out. It was almost as if invisible problems didn't really count. But we know now that ignoring how we feel inside doesn't make those feelings go away. It often makes them bigger. Think about it this way. If you were playing basketball and twisted your ankle badly, you'd get help right away. A coach, a nurse, maybe even a trip to the doctor. You'd get crutches, rest, and care. But what if the injury isn't to your body, but to your mind? What if you're so worried about a test that you can't sleep? Or feeling so down that it's hard to even get out of bed in the morning? Sometimes, schools don't have enough of the crutches or the doctors, like counselors, therapists, or just a quiet, safe space for these kinds of hurts. They might have a few, but not enough for everyone who needs them. This can help you understand why it matters so much. When schools don't offer enough support for our mental well-being, it's like asking someone with a broken leg to run a race. It makes learning harder, growing trickier, and just being a kid feel incredibly heavy. A truly modern school wouldn't just teach us facts. It would also help us learn how to take care of our whole selves, inside and out, making sure we have the tools to navigate the world with a healthy mind. Have you ever wondered about detention? It's where if you break a school rule, you stay after, often sitting silently. It's meant to make you think about what you did wrong. But here's the thing. Schools have used this exact method for a very long time, almost exactly the same way. Centuries ago, people believed that doing something wrong meant you needed to feel some discomfort or consequence to learn. This was true everywhere, not just schools and families, jobs, even the military. The idea was simple. Make it unpleasant, and the person won't want to repeat the action. Schools adopted this thinking. If a student talks out of turn or forgets homework, a silent hour after school seemed like a simple fix to make them stop. But does it really work as hoped? Imagine your phone isn't working right. If you just put it away in a drawer for an hour, hoping it fixes itself, that probably won't help, right? You need to understand why it's broken, maybe check the settings, or find a faulty app. You need to understand the problem itself. Detention often feels like just putting the student in the drawer. It focuses on the punishment, not always on helping you understand why your actions caused an issue or how to make better choices next time. It doesn't always teach new skills for managing frustration or remembering tasks. It just takes away your free time. So, it makes us wonder, are we truly teaching valuable lessons about responsibility and growth? Or are we just making students sit still and watch the clock? Maybe there are other ways to help students learn from mistakes, ways that teach them more than just how to be quiet. Ever thought about how amazing it would be to build something totally from scratch? Maybe a simple birdhouse, or even fix a wobbly chair? Modern school teaches us so much. We learn about faraway galaxies, historical events, and complex math problems. And that's all super important. But here's the thing. Schools often don't have classes that teach us how to actually make stuff with our hands. or how to fix things when they break. For a very long time, like hundreds of years ago, people learned by doing. If you wanted to be a blacksmith, you'd work with an experienced one. You wouldn't just read about forging metal, you'd actually swing the hammer. If you wanted to build a house, you'd learn from someone who had already built many. They called this an apprenticeship. It meant you learned skills directly by practicing them every day. Our world changed, and so did how we learn. Now, much of our learning happens from books or screens, which is useful, but is different from the direct experience of creating. Think about something simple, like a skateboard. You might know its history, or the physics of how it moves. But what if a wheel comes loose, or the bearings get gritty? Do you know how to tighten it, or replace a part? Not usually from a textbook. Or imagine wanting to create a small robot. You can learn about circuits, but actually wiring one up, seeing it fail and trying again, that's a different kind of lesson. It's not just about becoming a carpenter or an engineer, though those jobs are cool. It's about understanding how the world around us is put together. When you build something, you learn about patience and problem solving. You realize that mistakes are just part of the process. There's a special, quiet joy that comes from using your hands to bring an idea to life. It helps your brain and your hands work together, connecting you to the physical world in a very real way. This hands-on wisdom, this feeling of capability, is a powerful gift, and is something many schools don't offer much of. School trying to fit you in a box? Have you ever felt like school wants you to be good at everything? Like you're supposed to fit a certain idea of a good student, even if that doesn't feel like you? This is what we mean by school trying to fit you in a box. It's like everyone is supposed to wear the same size shoe, no matter if your foot is big or small. This system is designed for a specific kind of learner or certain skills, and it often doesn't make room for your different ways of thinking or unique talents. Think back to when schools first became common. A long time ago, during the Industrial Revolution, many schools were set up like factories. Factories needed workers who could follow instructions and do the same tasks repeatedly. So, schools began teaching everyone the same way, expecting similar results. They focused on standard subjects and tests, measuring everyone by the same ruler. This system became very common, and you can still see parts of it today. But here's the thing. People aren't assembly line products. Imagine a garden. You wouldn't expect every plant a tall sunflower, a delicate rose, a spreading fern to grow best in the exact same soil or with the same sunlight. Some need more water, others less. Trying to make them all grow the same way means many wouldn't truly thrive. It's the same with us. Some are amazing at art, others love solving tricky math problems. Some learn by reading, others by doing. So when you feel you don't quite fit the mold, remember it might not be about you being wrong. It might just be that the box isn't big enough, or it's the wrong shape for your unique way of growing and learning. Your value isn't just about how well you fit into a pre-made space. It's about all the different, interesting ways you can be yourself. And that's pretty important to remember. Have you ever thought about what it truly means to lead? It's not just about being the boss. Real leadership is more like being a guide, a helper, or someone who takes responsibility. It's about listening, making decisions, and inspiring others to work together. Here's the thing. Like riding a bike, leadership is a skill you get better at by actually doing it. For a very long time, since humans first lived in groups, someone always stepped forward to help guide. Whether finding food or building shelter, people naturally looked for someone to organize. Great thinkers from long ago even talked about how important it was to learn to lead wisely. They believed leadership was a special kind of wisdom, meant to make things better for everyone. But here's the problem. In many modern schools, chances to practice this kind of leadership are pretty rare. You might have a group project, but often one person directs everything, or the teacher guides too closely. There isn't much room for students to really take charge. Imagine trying to learn to swim. You can read books about it or watch videos. But until you get in the water and try, you won't truly learn. Leadership is the same. You need real moments to try out your ideas, make mistakes, and learn. When schools don't offer enough of these chances, it's like they're holding us back from growing an important part of ourselves. Learning to lead isn't just for future presidents, it's for everyone. It helps you understand yourself, find your voice, and feel confident guiding your own life choices. It's about being capable and ready for whatever comes next. in your community, and beyond. And that's why it matters so much. Have you ever thought about how much of what we learn in school is about the past? We study ancient civilizations, old wars, and leaders who lived hundreds of years ago. Learning history is super important. It's like the story of how we got here, offering clues about human nature and how societies work. But here's the thing. Sometimes it feels like school spends so much time looking backward that it forgets to help us understand what's happening right now. This idea is about focusing on events from long ago, but not connecting them enough to our modern world. History isn't just a collection of old stories. It's like the blueprint for how we got to be where we are today. Understanding it means we understand ourselves better and the world around us. But if we only look backwards, we might miss what's happening right in front of us. It's like learning every detail about how people used to send letters by horse and buggy, but never learning how to use email or text messaging. The old ways are part of the story, but they aren't the whole story of how we communicate now. Imagine you're learning to play a sport. You study all the rules from 50 years ago. You know exactly how the game was played then. But the game has changed. New players, new strategies, new equipment. If you only know the old rules, you'll be lost on the field today. It's kind of like that with the world. We learn about old battles, old leaders, old problems. But sometimes, we don't connect those lessons to the modern battles, leaders, and problems we face every day. A big part of growing up is learning to navigate the world you're living in. And while history offers amazing lessons, a school that truly prepares us should also help us connect those lessons directly to today's news, challenges, and opportunities. It's about using the wisdom of the past to truly understand and shape the present, and then build the future. Otherwise, we're studying ancient maps while trying to drive a modern car. Have you ever felt like you always need to be doing something? Like, if you're just sitting still, you're somehow wasting time? This push to constantly be busy is a big part of modern life, especially in school. Society often acts like busy equals good, so we feel strong pressure to fill every minute. If you're not studying, maybe you're at a club. If not there, perhaps a sport. And if not that, maybe you're scrolling your phone, still doing something. This idea that being busy is always best can really wear us down. For a long time, many cultures valued rest and quiet moments. They understood that just being was important. But in the last 100 years or so, we started to link our worth to how much we produce. It became cool to say you're swamped or too busy. It's like a badge of honor, even when it leaves us tired and stressed. Think of your phone battery. If you use it nonstop, apps, games, texts, it eventually dies, right? It needs to recharge. We're similar. School asks a lot. Classes, homework, tests, projects. Then add friends, family, maybe a job. It's easy to feel always on, always performing. This can make it hard to think clearly or feel happy. But here's the thing. Our brains and bodies need downtime. Like that phone, we need moments to just exist, to let our minds wander, or even to do nothing. Being still isn't lazy. It's how we process things, get new ideas, and avoid burning out. Maybe sometimes the smartest thing we can do is just be. And that's okay. Have you ever walked into a school, maybe even one you've never visited before, and felt a strange sense of familiarity? Like you've seen those long hallways, the rows of lockers, or the same kind of classroom somewhere else? Here's the thing. Many schools, especially those built decades ago, share a very similar design. They often look almost identical, whether they're in a big city or a quiet town. It's like they came from the same blueprint, a standard model for how a school should be. This idea of building schools to look so much alike isn't just a coincidence. It goes back to a time when society was changing fast, especially during the Industrial Revolution. Factories were popping up everywhere, and the goal was to produce things quickly and efficiently, making every item the same. People started to think that education should work a bit like that too. The idea was to create a system where every student received the same lessons in the same way to prepare them for similar kinds of work. Think of it like a factory assembly line, but for learning. Every part of the factory, every building was designed for a specific, repeatable purpose. It's a bit like how a chain restaurant or a big box store often looks the same no matter which city you visit. You know where the aisles are, or where to order your food. This consistency can be efficient, but it also makes you wonder, if every school building is designed to be the same, does it push us to learn in the same way too? Does it limit how creative we can be, or how we might want to explore ideas differently? It makes you think about what kind of learning spaces really help our unique minds grow. Have you ever really thought about the place you live? Not just your house, but your whole town or neighborhood. What's its story? Who lived here before? What old buildings hide secrets? Or what rivers shape the land? Here's the thing. Modern school often doesn't spend much time helping you understand the ground you walk on daily. This idea is about how school sometimes misses teaching us about our immediate world. It's like learning about distant galaxies but not knowing the trees in your own backyard. For a long time, people learned about their world right where they lived. Their community was their first classroom. Knowing local plants, town history, or old road stories wasn't just interesting. It was how they understood where they fit. It connected them to belonging, to something bigger. But now, we often focus on global history or faraway geography. That's good, but it can make us strangers in our own hometowns. Think about your neighborhood. Do you know why that big park is shaped a certain way? Or what that old statue downtown represents? Knowing these things isn't just trivia. It's like knowing the backstory of your favorite video game. It makes the world around you richer, more meaningful. When you understand the history and culture right outside your door, daily walks become more interesting. You see new connections. It's like living in a house your whole life but never exploring the attic or basement. You know the main rooms, but miss hidden history and character. Not learning about your local town means we can feel disconnected from the place that shapes us. It keeps us from seeing how our lives are part of a longer, bigger story unfolding right outside our windows. And that's why it matters. Understanding your town helps you feel truly at home, rooted in your community. Have you ever stopped to think about what truly helps us get through life, day to day, in the most basic way? Sometimes we argue about what's more important in school, the arts, like painting or music, or sports, like basketball and track. It's a tough question, because both are good for us in different ways. But if we're talking about what helps us survive and thrive in the most direct sense, there's a strong argument for sports. Here's the thing. Sports build something really fundamental. They make our bodies strong and our minds sharp in ways that directly impact our well-being. When you play a sport, you're not just learning to shoot a hoop or run fast. You're building endurance, coordination, and quick thinking. You learn how to work with others, how to handle winning and losing, and how to push past your limits. These are skills that help you physically navigate the world and deal with challenges head on. Think about people long ago in ancient times. Their survival often depended on being physically strong and able to work together. They needed to run, hunt, defend themselves, and build things. Communities that valued physical training often thrived because their people were healthy and capable. While they also had art, like cave paintings or sculptures, those things often came after the basic needs of survival were met. Being physically fit was like having a strong foundation for life itself. It's kind of like building a house. You can have the most beautiful paintings on the walls, the most amazing sculptures in the garden, but if the foundation isn't solid, the house won't stand for long. Your body is that foundation. If you're not taking care of it, if you're not strong and healthy, it's much harder to do anything else, even something as wonderful as creating art. Sports give you the energy, the resilience, and the health to actually live your life fully. So, while art feeds our soul and helps us express ourselves in beautiful ways, sports give us the core strength and resilience we need just to be here, to move, to think clearly, and to face the world. They teach us discipline and teamwork, which are practical tools for almost any situation. And that's why, in a basic way, our physical well-being, often honed through sports, sets the stage for everything else we do. Ever wonder why we still get report cards, those folded pieces of paper with letter grades? For generations, this has been the main way schools tell you and your parents how you're doing. They're basically a snapshot, a quick check of what you've learned in different subjects at one specific moment. The idea is to show your progress, but also to sort students. This idea of giving letters or numbers for learning goes way back. Think about it. Hundreds of years ago, when schools got bigger, teachers needed a fast way to show a lot of students' results. It was like how factories needed to check if products were all the same. So, grading became a simple, quick way to measure if a student met a certain standard. It made sense then for a time when preparing for factory jobs was a big deal. The system was about comparing everyone on the same scale, like items on an assembly line. But here's the thing, learning isn't like building a car. Imagine trying to grade a plant's growth by just measuring its height once a month. You wouldn't see the tiny new leaves, the struggle through a dry spell, or how its roots are spreading deep down. A report card is kind of like that one height measurement. It doesn't show all the amazing ways you're growing, thinking, and changing inside. It doesn't capture the curiosity you felt when a topic finally clicked, or the effort you put in to understand something difficult, even if you still struggled on the final test. So, maybe it's time to ask if a single letter can truly capture all your learning, your effort, and the unique person you're becoming. Learning is a journey, not just a series of tests. And your worth as a student and as a person is so much more than any grade on a report card. Ever feel like your brain is just full? Like you've been sitting so long, listening, writing, and your mind just wants to drift away? It's a common feeling, especially in school. Modern school days often pack a lot of learning into long stretches, with very few moments built in to just breathe and reset. Here's the thing, our brains aren't designed to focus intensely for hours without stopping. Think of your brain like a muscle. If you work out your arm nonstop for 2 hours, it gets tired, right? It might even cramp up. Your brain works in a similar way. It needs short periods of rest and recovery to keep performing its best. If we don't get these little pauses, our attention can wander and learning becomes much harder. Long ago, even factory workers who did repetitive tasks had scheduled breaks throughout their day. People figured out that even just a few minutes away from the task made them more productive when they returned. It's not just about being lazy, it's about being effective. Psychologists and scientists have studied this for years. They call it things like attention restoration theory, which basically means getting a little break, especially outside or doing something different, helps your brain recharge its focus battery. Imagine trying to play a video game for 5 hours straight without ever pausing. You'd get tired, your eyes would hurt, and you'd probably start making mistakes you wouldn't normally make. Or think about your phone. If you use it all day without plugging it in, it eventually dies. Our brains are a bit like that. They need to plug into rest mode occasionally to keep going. A quick walk, a few minutes of quiet, or even just chatting with a friend can make a big difference. When we don't get these natural pauses, learning can feel like a chore instead of an adventure. It's harder to be curious or excited when you're just trying to push through brain fog. Allowing for more regular short breaks could make school feel less like a marathon and more like a series of sprints, with time to recover between each one. This way, learning could be deeper and more enjoyable. Have you ever gotten home from school and just felt completely wiped out, even if you didn't do anything super active? Like your brain is just fuzzy and heavy? It's a real feeling, and you're not alone. We often think of tiredness as only coming from physical work, like running miles or lifting heavy things. But your brain works hard too. All day long, it's taking in new information. Dates, formulas, stories, instructions. It's trying to make sense of everything, remember things for tests, and figure out what's important. Imagine carrying a backpack that just keeps getting heavier and heavier with books all day long. That's a bit like what your brain goes through. For a long time, people thought learning was mainly about filling your head with facts. But even way back, thinkers in ancient Greece, like the philosopher Plato, talked about how true understanding didn't just come from being told things. They believed in deep thinking and quiet conversation, where ideas had room to breathe and settle in your mind. Our modern school system, with its back-to-back classes, short breaks, and constant flow of new topics, doesn't always allow for that kind of mental breathing room. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose, when what you really need is a steady sip. Think about your phone. If you have too many apps open at once, running in the background, what happens? It slows down, it gets hot, the battery drains fast. Your brain is kind of similar. When it's constantly processing, constantly switching from one subject to another, it uses up a lot of energy. It needs time to close those apps, to sort through all the information, and to just rest. So, if you feel mentally tired after school, it's not a sign you're not smart or not trying hard enough. It's often a sign that your brain has been working really, really hard. It needs moments of quiet. It needs time to just be, to wonder, to process without constant new demands. And that's okay. Learning isn't just about how much you can cram in, but also how much space you give your mind to grow. Have you ever thought about where your money goes? Maybe you get an allowance, or sometimes your parents give you cash for something. But here's the thing. Schools teach us a lot of important subjects, like history and science. What they often don't teach us, though, is how to really manage our money. This isn't just about counting change. Handling money means understanding how to earn it, save it, spend it wisely, and even how to make it grow. It's about budgeting, knowing how much you have, how much you need, and how to plan for future expenses. Think about it like a game of strategy for your finances. This skill wasn't always taught in formal schools because, for a long time, many families taught these things at home or through apprenticeships. People learned by helping run a family farm or a shop, but our world is different now, and those lessons don't always happen naturally. Imagine you're saving up for something big, like a new video game or a cool pair of sneakers. If you just spend every dollar you get as soon as you get it, you'll never reach your goal. It's kind of like trying to build a tall tower without planning how many blocks you need or where each one goes. You might have a lot of blocks, but without a plan, your tower will fall apart. Learning about money means understanding that every dollar has a job, and you get to decide what that job is. It's about making choices today that help you later. When you don't learn these basic money skills, it can make life harder later on. It's like trying to navigate a new city without a map. You might get by, but you'll probably get lost a lot, waste time, and maybe even end up in places you didn't want to be. Understanding money isn't just about getting rich. It's about being independent and having freedom. It's about not worrying constantly about bills or debt. It's about having peace of mind and the ability to make your own choices in life. It's a fundamental part of growing up and building a stable future. Think about it. Have you ever felt like someone was looking over your shoulder, even when you knew exactly what you were doing? Maybe you're building something or working on a project you understand well, but then an adult starts giving you super specific instructions, even for tiny steps. It can feel like they don't quite trust you to do it right on your own, right? Here's the thing. Sometimes our amazing teachers face something similar. Teachers spend years learning how to teach. They know so much about how kids learn, what makes a classroom exciting, and how to help each student grow. They have this deep wisdom from experience, like a master craftsman knows their tools and materials inside out. But in modern school systems, teachers often get told exactly what to teach, when to teach it, and even how to teach it, by people who might not be in the classroom every day. There are strict rules, certain tests that dictate what must be covered, and sometimes less freedom for teachers to use their own judgment or follow their students' interests. Imagine if you had a super talented chef, someone who's been cooking delicious meals for years and knows all the best recipes and techniques. But then, every day, someone from an office told that chef exactly how many peas to put on each plate or which specific spoon to stir with. That chef probably wouldn't feel very trusted or valued, right? They might even feel like their creativity and knowledge aren't important. When teachers aren't fully trusted to make decisions in their own classrooms, it can take away from their passion and limit how much they can really connect with students. When we trust people to do their best work, they often do even better. It makes you wonder how much more our schools could achieve if we truly let teachers lead with their knowledge and heart. Have you ever felt that sinking feeling when you get something wrong, like on a test or in a project? It's a feeling many of us know well, and in school, failure often gets painted as a big, scary final thing. It's like reaching a dead end with no way forward. But here's the thing. This idea that getting something wrong is always bad, it might actually be one of the most outdated parts of our school system. Think about it this way. What if making mistakes isn't about being bad or not smart enough, but actually a really important part of learning? For a long time, thinkers and inventors didn't see mistakes as an endpoint. They saw them as clues, as signs pointing them toward the right answer. Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb, tried thousands of times before it finally worked. He famously said he hadn't failed. He had just found thousands of ways that wouldn't work. It's kind of like learning to play a new video game. You don't ace it the first time, right? You try a level, maybe you fall into a trap, or you don't beat the boss. That's not really failing the game, it's just getting feedback. Your brain figures out what went wrong. You learn from that mistake, you adjust your strategy, and then you try again. Each failure is just a step, teaching you something new about the game's rules or how the enemies move. So, in the real world, outside of school grades, making mistakes is often how we get better at things. It's how we discover new ideas, how we solve big problems, and how we grow as people. What if school could help us see every mistake not as a failure, but as a chance to understand, to improve, and to get a little bit closer to figuring things out? Imagine how much more brave and curious we might be if we weren't so afraid of getting it wrong. Have you ever really stopped to think about why we still raise our hands in class? It's something we do almost without thinking, a habit learned from kindergarten. But if you pause and look at it, it's a pretty unique way to talk in a group. Here's the thing. Raising your hand is a signal. It's like saying, "Hey teacher, I have something to say and I promise to wait my turn." It's about creating order, making sure everyone gets a chance, and stopping too many people from talking at once. This practice goes back a long way, especially to times when classrooms were much bigger, with many students and only one teacher trying to manage them all. Imagine trying to get a word in edgewise if everyone just started shouting out answers or questions. So, raising hands became the accepted way to keep things calm and fair. It made sure quiet students had a chance, not just the loudest ones. It was a simple system for managing a room full of eager minds or even just restless ones. But here's a thought. Outside of school, do we usually raise our hands to speak? If you're talking with friends or having a family dinner, you don't typically wait for permission. You find a natural opening, maybe make eye contact, and then you speak. It's more like a conversation flows, sometimes pausing, sometimes overlapping a little, but generally finding its own rhythm. We learn to pick up on cues, to listen actively, and to jump in when it feels right. That's how many real-world discussions happen. So, does raising your hand still make the most sense for how we learn and communicate today? It teaches patience, which is good, but it also creates a pause, a moment where an idea might fade before you get to share it. It makes you wait for permission to contribute, even when you have something valuable to add. It makes you wonder if there are better ways to encourage everyone's voice, ways that feel more natural and help ideas flow freely without needing a signal to start. Have you ever stopped to really think about what being healthy means? Most of us picture eating good food, exercising, and not getting sick, and those are part of it. But true health is much bigger than just your physical body. It's also about your mind feeling calm, your emotions being steady, and your relationships with others being strong and supportive. It's like a whole system working together in balance. Long ago, thinkers like the ancient Greeks understood this. They had a saying, "A healthy mind in a healthy body." They believed your thoughts, feelings, and physical self were all connected, like different parts of a flowing river. For them, real health was about finding harmony. Our schools teach us so much, science, history, math, but this big picture of overall well-being often gets lost. We focus a lot on knowledge, but less on the practical wisdom of living a truly balanced life. Here's what I mean. We learn about the human heart in biology, which is important. But do we learn practical ways to handle stress when our minds race before a big test? Or how to work through disagreements with friends without getting overly upset? It's kind of like learning every part of a bicycle. The gears, the chain, the frame, but never actually learning how to ride it safely. Knowing the parts is different from knowing how to use them for real life. Modern schools give us pieces of the health puzzle. A gym class here, a short lesson there, but they don't often teach us how to put all those pieces together to build a strong foundation for our overall well-being. It's about truly caring for your whole self, your mind, body, and heart, and that's why it matters. Because building a life where you feel truly healthy, inside and out, might be one of the most important lessons there is, even if it's not on the final exam. Have you ever thought about what truly excites you? What you love to do, even when nobody's telling you to? Here's the thing. Often, school has a set path for everyone. You learn math, science, history, English, and these are all important, no doubt. But what if your heart beats for drawing comics, or coding video games, or understanding how engines work? Sometimes, school doesn't leave much room for these unique sparks inside you. It focuses on teaching you everything, but maybe not your specific thing. A long time ago, schools were designed to prepare people for factory jobs or for a world needing similar skills. It was about creating good, hard-working citizens with shared knowledge. That was useful then, But our world has changed so much. Now, following the same path isn't always best. People who invent new things, create amazing art, or solve big problems usually follow their own deep interests. Imagine you have a garden. Most schools are like a garden that plants only one kind of flower, say roses. Roses are beautiful, but what if you're a sunflower, or a sturdy oak tree, or a delicate orchid? You need different soil, different light, different care. If you're forced to grow like a rose, you might not bloom at all, or you might feel like you're not good enough, when really, you just need a different environment. Your passions are like your unique plant, needing its own kind of sunshine, and that's why it matters. When school doesn't see or feed these special interests, it can feel like a part of you is being ignored. It's not about being bad at school subjects, but about recognizing that who you are goes beyond grades and tests. Your passions are a huge part of your identity, your future career, and what will make you happy and useful in the world. Learning to listen to that inner call and finding ways to explore it is just as important as anything else. Ever feel like history class is just about memorizing endless numbers? 1,492, 1,776, 1,865? Often it feels like the main goal is just stuffing your head with dates. But here's the thing, dates are just numbers. They mark a moment. Knowing when something happened is one thing, but knowing why it happened, how it changed things, and what it means for us today, that's totally different and way more important. History isn't just a list of events. It's like a long, winding story. The dates are like page numbers. If you only know page numbers, you don't know the story. You can say chapter 5 is on page 42, but you won't know what happened or why. And that's why just memorizing dates can be a problem. It tricks us into thinking we understand history when really we just hold disconnected facts. Imagine learning to ride a bike. You wouldn't just memorize the date the first bicycle was invented, right? What matters is the balance, the pedal push, the wind in your hair. It's about understanding the process of riding, the experience, and how it helps you get around. Dates for a bicycle are interesting, sure, but they don't actually teach you how to ride. It's the same with history. Knowing when World War II ended is a fact, but understanding why it started, the human costs, the ripple effects that shaped our world, that's the real learning. That's what helps you connect the past to the present. Just knowing a date doesn't truly help you understand why people made big decisions. While dates are important as markers, our real job is to dig deeper. It's about finding the meaning in those moments, not just recalling when they happened. That's where the real wisdom lives. Ever wonder what happens when a light bulb goes out or your bicycle chain pops off and there's no one around to help? Our schools teach us a lot of important things, like math and history, but often they don't teach us how to handle the little troubles that pop up around our homes every day. This isn't about becoming an expert. It's simpler. Knowing how to tighten a loose screw, stop a small leak, or mend a torn shirt. These are practical life skills. Not long ago, in your grandparents' time, people learned these things at home, often from family. Mending something broken wasn't just a hobby. It was key to being independent and self-reliant, not needing to buy new things or call for help every time something small went wrong. There's a quiet strength in being able to handle things yourself. Think about a small puzzle, like a wobbly chair or a remote control that stops working. If you understand how objects generally work, you might figure out why it's broken and how to get it going again. This isn't just about saving money, though that's a nice bonus. It's about building confidence. It's about feeling capable and understanding your world, Hanson. There's a real satisfaction from fixing something with your own hands, making it useful again. It connects you to the things in your life and gives you a calm sense of being ready for simple challenges. Have you ever noticed how some things just take forever to change? Think about your phone. It gets updated all the time, right? New apps, new features, faster internet. But then, think about school. The way classes are structured, how subjects are taught, even the bells ringing. It often feels like it's been the same for a very long time. Here's the thing. The school system is really slow to change. What does slow to change mean for something as big as school? It means that even when the world outside moves fast, schools stay mostly the same. Imagine a huge old ocean liner. It takes a lot of effort and a long time to turn that ship around. That's like our education system. It's a massive setup, built over many years with tons of people involved, teachers, administrators, parents, students, plus laws and rules. Changing one part affects countless others. Most modern schools were designed a long time ago. Think back to the Industrial Revolution. Schools were set up to prepare kids for that world, to be on time, follow directions, do repetitive tasks. They needed workers. So, the classroom we know, with rows of desks and a teacher at the front, became standard. But today's world is very different. We need problem solvers, creative thinkers, people who can adapt. The system, being so old and big, just doesn't shift easily to fit these new needs. It's like trying to run the latest video game on a really old computer. The game keeps getting better, but the old computer wasn't built for it. It struggles because it can't keep up. The challenge is, how do we update the computer our school system so it can run the software of today's fast-changing world? It's not about blaming anyone. It's just about understanding that changing something so big takes time and thoughtful effort. Maybe thinking about this can help us imagine how schools could be different and better for all of us. Ever stared at a math problem and wondered, when am I ever going to use this? You're not alone. Here's the thing. Often in school, we learn rules and formulas for math without really knowing why they matter. It's like learning to play an instrument by only practicing scales, never a song. You know the notes, but you don't feel the music. This happens when math is taught as just numbers on a page, instead of as a powerful tool for understanding the world. Imagine long ago, people needed to build huge structures, like pyramids. They didn't just guess. They used math to figure out angles, weights, and how many bricks they'd need. Or they looked at the stars, trying to predict seasons for farming. Math was their way to solve real, everyday problems, big and small. It was born out of a need to do something. But sometimes, school lessons make math feel like a puzzle that someone else invented with no connection to your life. For example, think about designing a roller coaster, or even just building a strong treehouse. Engineers and builders use math all the time to make sure those things are safe and work correctly. They use geometry to figure out shapes and algebra to calculate forces. When you learn about slopes or equations in class, it might feel pointless. But those are the exact tools these people use to make awesome, real-world stuff happen. So, when math feels boring, it might not be the math itself that's the problem. It could be that we're missing the big picture, the why. When we don't see how a math concept connects to something real, like designing a video game, understanding how money works, or even just baking a cake, it's hard to get excited about it. But when you see the connection, math stops being just a bunch of numbers and becomes a way to truly understand how things work. It turns into a kind of secret language for solving the world's cool mysteries. Have you ever noticed how much more you learn when you're actually doing something? Not just reading about it, but truly getting your hands dirty? Here's the thing. Modern school often doesn't leave much room for that. We spend a lot of time on subjects broken into little pieces. Math problems on a page, history dates in a book, but real life isn't like that. In the real world, problems are messy and connected. A real-world project means tackling something that matters outside the classroom. It could be designing a new park, building a robot, or helping clean up a local river. These projects let you use what you learn in many different subjects all at once. Think about how people learned skills long ago. A young carpenter learned by working with an experienced one, building real houses. A baker learned by baking bread every day. This kind of apprenticeship was the original school. It wasn't about tests. It was about mastering a skill through direct experience. Even philosophers like John Dewey believed in learning by doing. He thought education should connect directly to life and that our minds grow best when we're actively exploring and solving problems that truly matter. Just sitting and listening wasn't enough for him. It's like learning to ride a bike. You can read every book about bike riding, watch videos, and memorize the parts. But you won't truly learn until you get on the bike, wobble, fall, and finally push off yourself. The feeling of the wind, the balance, the effort, that's the real learning. School often gives us the books about bike riding, but rarely gives us enough time on the actual bike, pedaling towards a real destination. When we miss out on these real-world projects, we miss chances to see how all our school subjects fit together. We miss the chance to feel the satisfaction of making something real, something that actually works or helps. It's a quiet thought. What if learning wasn't just about passing tests, but about building a better world? one meaningful project at a time. Maybe then, school would feel less like a series of lessons and more like a journey of creation. Have you ever thought about how some places just feel right? A spot where you can relax and be yourself? Then there are other places where you might feel on edge, like you need to hide parts of who you are. School, for many, can sometimes feel like that second kind of place. When we talk about school not feeling safe, we're not just talking about physical safety, like avoiding a fight. That's important, yes. But there's a deeper kind of safety, emotional and social safety. This means feeling like you truly belong. It means you can make a mistake without being laughed at, or ask a question without judgment. It's about being respected for who you are, even if you're different. Think about our brains. Long ago, our ancestors needed to feel safe from danger. If they didn't, their brains went into fight or flight mode, focused on surviving, not learning. It's a bit like that today. If your brain senses a threat, constant pressure, worry about fitting in, or a feeling that your voice doesn't matter, then it's really hard to focus on lessons. Imagine trying to learn a new instrument where someone yells at you for a wrong note, or students giggle when you mess up. Even if you love music, you feel too stressed to enjoy it. Your mind would be busy worrying about the next mistake, not how to play better. So, when schools don't feel safe in this deeper way, it's not just uncomfortable. It makes real learning harder. Our minds can't truly open up and explore new ideas if they're constantly on alert. For true growth, our brains need to feel calm and secure, knowing it's okay to try to fail and to simply be yourself. That feeling of safety, of true belonging, is the first and most important step to real education. Ever wonder why some things just don't seem to change, even when everything else around them does? Like, no matter how many years pass, the school cafeteria often feels like a time capsule. It's funny because the world outside keeps moving, always finding new ways to do things. But inside these walls, it can seem like lunch is stuck in a loop. Here's the thing, food is super important. It's not just about filling your stomach so you're not hungry. What we eat gives us the energy to think clearly, to learn new things, and it even affects our mood and how we feel each day. So, when we talk about how modern school can feel outdated, the cafeteria food is a really clear example of that. For a long time, the main idea was just to feed a lot of kids quickly and cheaply, and that made sense for a while. But our understanding of nutrition and what truly healthy food can do for us has changed a lot since then. Outside of school, you see so many options, so many new ideas about what to eat. But then you walk into the cafeteria and it's often the same old stuff, sometimes bland, often processed, just like it was decades ago. Think about how apps on your phone get updated all the time. Your favorite game or social media platform gets new features, better graphics, or smoother ways to connect with friends. It's constantly evolving and improving. But the school lunch menu, it often feels like it's running on software from the 1990s. The recipes, the ingredients, the overall feel, it just hasn't kept up with how much we know now about healthy eating, or even how much tastes and preferences change over time. So, it's not just about whether the pizza is good or bad. It's about something bigger. When the food provided at school doesn't reflect what we know about health and well-being today, it sends a quiet message. It tells us that this important part of our day, our fuel for learning, isn't getting the modern attention it truly deserves. It's a missed chance to teach us about nourishing our bodies and about how food connects to our overall health and even the planet. It reminds us that some parts of school might still be living in the past, even when everything else around us is racing into the future. Have you ever thought about how many different ways there are to be active? Maybe you love basketball, or maybe you've never quite found a sport that clicks for you. Here's the thing. When we think about school sports, a few big ones usually come to mind. Football, basketball, volleyball, track. And that's great for kids who love those. But what about everyone else? Modern schools often have a pretty short list of options. This means if you're not into the popular choices, you might feel left out. Or worse, you might think you're just not sporty, when really you just haven't found the right fit yet. Think about it this way. Hundreds of years ago, people played all sorts of games, depending on where they lived and what they had. It wasn't always about winning huge championships. It was about being active, having fun, and moving your body in ways that felt good. There was more room for local games, for things that weren't so organized or competitive. Our schools today, though, often focus on a very narrow idea of what sport means. usually the ones that draw big crowds or have big leagues. It's like school decided everyone should only eat apples, even if some kids really prefer oranges or bananas. It's a bit like going to a library with only 5 books. What if none of those 5 books are interesting to you? Does that mean you don't like reading? No, it just means you haven't found the right book yet. The same goes for sports. If a school only offers basketball, football, and soccer, someone who might love rock climbing, ultimate frisbee, or even competitive chess, which some consider a sport, is out of luck. They miss out on the chance to build skills, make friends, and feel good about being active in a way that truly excites them. And that's why it matters. When schools offer more choices, they open up a world for every student to find their unique way to move and play. It's not just about winning games, it's about helping each person discover their own strengths, their own joy in movement, and their own place in a team or activity. It teaches us that being good at sports isn't just one thing, but many things, and that everyone deserves a chance to find what makes them feel alive and connected. Have you ever thought about how much of school is about following directions? Like raising your hand, walking on the right, or filling out a worksheet exactly as shown. We learn these rules and we get good at following them. Good grades often come from this, right? Here's the thing. For a long time, society needed people who could follow instructions well. Think about the Industrial Revolution. Many people moved to cities, working in big factories. Employers needed workers who showed up on time, did their assigned tasks, and didn't question the process. So, schools were set up to prepare people for that world. Obedience was key. You listened, learned facts, and repeated them. This was seen as the path to success. But what happens when you're always just following rules? When do you get to ask, but why? Or what if we did it differently? Imagine baking cookies. The recipe tells you to mix flour, sugar, and butter in order. You follow it perfectly and you get great cookies. But what if you wondered, what if I used less sugar? Or what if I added chocolate? That's when you move from just following directions to understanding the science, maybe even inventing something new. Our world today isn't just about old recipes. It's about solving new problems, thinking creatively, and having ideas no one has had before. It's about innovating. The challenges we face need people who can look at the rules and ask, are these still the best rules? Or even, do we need new ones? Learning to question, to explore beyond what's given, that's where true understanding and progress begin. It's about finding your own path. Have you ever looked at a school uniform and wondered, why do we even do this? It seems like an old idea from a different time. But uniforms are still a big part of many schools today, and it's worth thinking about why they've stuck around. At its core, a uniform aims to make everyone look the same. The main idea is to cut down on distractions. If everyone wears similar clothes, no one can show off expensive items, and no one feels left out because they don't have the newest trends. It's supposed to create a level playing field. What you wear stops mattering, and what you learn becomes the focus. This concept isn't new. For centuries, uniforms have been used where order and unity were important, like in armies or religious groups. They help people feel part of something bigger, or signal their role. Think about a sports team. Every player wears the same jersey. Why? It's not just to tell them apart from the other team. It also builds team spirit. When everyone wears the same colors, they feel more connected, more like one unit working together. The uniform says, we are all in this together. So, in schools, the hope is that uniforms help build a strong sense of community. They want students to feel like they belong, like they're part of one school family. They also aim to reduce bullying related to clothes and make schools feel safer by making it easy to spot who belongs. But here's the thing. While uniforms try to create equality in a focused learning space, they can also limit how you express yourself. Clothes are a way to show your personality, your mood. When everyone looks the same, does it make it harder to celebrate what makes each person unique? It's a balance, trying to build unity without erasing individuality. And that's why this old idea still makes us wonder if it truly fits our modern world. Have you ever noticed how much of school is about you? Your test, your essay, your project, done alone. It often feels like a solo mission, doesn't it? But here's the thing. Outside of school, in the real world, working with other people is almost always a huge part of what we do. From building a house to running a company or even putting on a concert, people work together. This idea of learning mostly by yourself kind of grew strong during a time called the Industrial Revolution. Back then, factories needed individual workers who could do specific tasks perfectly. So, schools started to train kids to be good at individual assignments, like parts of a machine, because that's what the world seemed to need. But the world has changed a lot since then. Think about how a great sports team wins. It's not just about one superstar. It's about everyone knowing their role, passing the ball, cheering each other on, and figuring out problems together in the moment. Each player has their own skills, but they combine them. Modern challenges, like figuring out how to stop pollution or creating new technology, are too big for just one person. They need different minds, different talents, and different ways of thinking to come together. So, when school doesn't give us many chances to truly work as a team, to brainstorm and sometimes even struggle and fail together, it might be missing a really important part of getting us ready for what's next. It's like practicing soccer alone in your backyard when the game is played with 11 people. Learning to collaborate, to listen to others, and to share ideas isn't just a nice skill. It's one of the most powerful ways we create and solve things in life. Have you ever stopped to think about how you learned to read? Not just the letters, but how those letters suddenly made sense and turned into stories? For a long time, schools taught reading very focused on rules. You learn your ABCs and the sounds each letter makes. Then came blends, bull, tr, sh. You spent a lot of time sounding out words, breaking them into tiny parts like cat makes cat. It was about memorizing patterns and rules, practicing them over and over. The idea was, if you could decode any word, you could read anything. This approach grew popular when education became more structured, like in the early 1900s. People believed reading was mostly a mechanical skill, something you built piece by piece, like putting together a toy from instructions. It was efficient for teaching basics to many kids. But here's the thing. Imagine learning to play the guitar. If all you ever did was learn to hold the pick, strum one string, and memorize notes on paper, you technically know how to play. But would you ever make music? Would you feel the rhythm or understand a song's emotion? Probably not. You'd be focused on the mechanics, not the meaning or the joy. The old way of teaching reading was kind of like that. It gave us the tools to break down words, which is super important. But sometimes, it missed the bigger picture. It didn't always connect those sounds and rules to the amazing worlds hidden inside books or to the powerful ideas words can carry. It showed us how to read, but maybe not always why reading matters, or how great it is to get lost in a story. Have you ever thought about how important it is to have a say in things? Like really have your voice heard? Here's the thing. Modern school often misses a big chance to teach us about being good citizens, especially when it comes to voting. Being a citizen isn't just about living in a country. It's about being an active part of it. It means understanding how your community and government work. And a huge part of that is voting. Voting isn't just picking a name on a ballot. It's how we, as a group, decide who leads us, what rules we live by, and what future we build together. Think about it this way. Hundreds of years ago, people didn't always get to choose their leaders. Kings and queens just took charge. But then, brave people fought hard for the right to vote, for the idea that everyone should have a voice in their government. They believed that if you're going to live under certain laws, you should help decide what those laws are. It's like playing a board game, but no one ever taught you the rules, or what your turn means. You just sit there while others move pieces, and you don't really know how to play your part, or even that you have a part to play. How can you play well if you don't understand the game? When schools don't focus enough on these skills, on how to research candidates, understand different viewpoints, or even register to vote, it's like sending us out into the world without a map. We might know a lot about history or math, which are super important, but we might not feel ready to step up and make our mark on our own communities. Being an informed voter and an active citizen means having the power to shape your world, to make changes, and to stand up for what you believe in. It's about knowing your voice matters and how to use it for good, making sure that the future reflects the hopes of everyone, not just a few. Have you ever felt like school sometimes cares more about the letter on your report card than what you actually learn? It's a strange feeling, isn't it? Like the whole reason you go to class, read books, and do projects is just to get a good grade. This idea that school mainly focuses on grades means success is often measured by a single number or letter. A, B, C, 90%. It's less about how much you truly understood or how curious you became. It's just about a score. If you get a good score, you're smart. If not, well, maybe not. Think about it. Long ago, before report cards, people learned by doing. An apprentice learned from a master, like a blacksmith. There wasn't a test to be an A blacksmith. They just became good by practicing and making things. Grades became common much later, mostly to easily sort students when schools got bigger. The idea was to track progress, but the tracking became the main goal, not the learning itself. It's like the map became more important than the actual journey. Imagine learning to play a musical instrument, say the guitar. You spend hours practicing, feeling the strings, slowly making music. You'll mess up a lot, but you keep trying. If your guitar teacher only cared about giving you a grade on one perfect performance, would you really enjoy the messy, fun process of learning? Would you explore different songs or just try to hit notes for the test? Learning to play is about the journey, the feeling, the small victories. A grade is just a tiny snapshot, not the whole story of your musical growth. Here's the thing. Real learning, the kind that sticks with you, isn't just about a number. It's about sparking a light inside you, about figuring things out even when it's hard. It's about being curious and feeling proud of understanding something new, not just because it's on a test. Our minds are like vast gardens. Focusing only on grades is like only caring about how tall one flower is instead of enjoying the whole garden blooming. It makes you wonder what truly matters when we try to grow. Have you ever wondered if the ways schools try to stop bullying actually work? It's a question many of us have quietly thought about, especially if we've seen it happen or been part of it. Bullying isn't just a one-time, unkind comment. It's when someone with more power, whether that's physical strength, social influence, or just being older repeatedly, harms another person who feels like they can't defend themselves. Schools usually have rules against it, which is good, but the real challenge is how those rules are put into action. For a long time, the common idea was that kids should just tough it out, or that bullying was just a normal part of growing up. This way of thinking often meant problems were ignored or a quick punishment was given without really looking at why it happened. It's like when a car makes a strange noise. You could just turn up the radio to drown it out, or you could pull over and try to figure out what's actually wrong with the engine. Schools sometimes are too quick to just turn up the radio or just hand out a consequence thinking that will fix everything. But here's the thing, just punishing a bully or telling the person being bullied to ignore it often doesn't solve the deeper issue. It's like putting a small band-aid on a broken arm. The band-aid covers the skin, but it doesn't help the bones heal. The problem still exists underneath. For real healing, both for the person being hurt and for the person doing the hurting, everyone needs to understand what happened, why it was wrong, and how to make sure it doesn't happen again. This takes more than just a quick trip to the principal's office. Ultimately, a school community should feel safe and fair for everyone. This means really listening to what happened, helping bullies understand the impact of their actions, and supporting those who have been targeted. It's about building a place where respect is taught in practice, not just something written in a rule book. When schools truly commit to this, it feels different. It feels like everyone belongs and can grow, safe from fear. Ever feel like your brain is just buzzing and you can't find a quiet corner anywhere? Or maybe your school always feels busy, loud, or meant for work? Here's the thing. Modern schools often lack spaces where you can truly just be. Not for studying, not for group work, but just for quiet time. These are places to relax your mind, let your thoughts wander, or simply sit without a task. Think about it. Humans have always needed moments of stillness. Ancient thinkers walked in gardens or sat by rivers to process ideas. Even famous scientists say their best thoughts came when they were away from their desks, maybe on a walk. Our brains need space to sort things out, not just be constantly fed new information. Imagine your phone. If you use it nonstop, apps running and screen always on, what happens? The battery drains, right? Your brain is similar. It needs moments to charge or reset. If you're always in a busy learning environment without breaks for quiet reflection, your mental battery can run low. It's like a muscle needing rest after a workout. Our minds need that downtime to grow stronger and clearer. Being quiet isn't about being lazy. It's a really important part of learning and growing. When we have a quiet spot, We can think through tough problems, process our feelings, or just dream a little. These moments let our ideas connect in new ways. So having peaceful spaces isn't a luxury. It's a basic need for a healthy, thoughtful mind. It helps us understand ourselves better and navigate the busy world around us. Have you ever thought about how much it costs just to start school each year? Remember that long list of supplies you get even before classes begin? All those notebooks, pencils, binders, maybe a special calculator or art kit? Here's the thing, those costs keep climbing. It's not just a few dollars anymore. For many families, getting ready for school means spending hundreds. A new backpack, pens, specific paper, sometimes even technology. These aren't optional. They're often required. If a family has more than one child, that cost multiplies quickly, becoming a real burden on their budget. This affects other family spending. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Public education was supposed to be available to everyone, no matter their family's wealth. People believed learning was so important, every student should have an equal chance. But when you have to buy so much just to get through the school day, it feels less equal. It's like a free concert where you have to buy all the equipment just to listen. Imagine wanting to join a sports team. You're excited, but then you find out you have to buy an expensive uniform, special shoes, and the right ball just to try out. It's not about playing, it's about paying for all the gear first. School can feel a bit like that. You're ready to learn, but there's a growing pile of things you have to buy before you can truly begin. So, when we talk about school being outdated, this is a big part of it. Is the system fair if learning tools create such a burden? Education should open doors. It shouldn't feel like buying every item just to participate. This makes us think about what we truly value about learning. Have you ever tried to learn how to ride a bike just by reading a book about it? Or maybe tried to bake a cake by only watching someone else do it on television? You can read all the instructions, memorize every step, and understand the theory, but until you actually get on the bike or mix those ingredients yourself, something big is missing. That's how it feels to learn science without doing experiments. When we talk about science, a huge part of it isn't just knowing facts, it's about figuring things out. For a long time, people mostly thought about how the world worked. They'd come up with ideas but didn't always test them. Then, people like Galileo Galilei started doing things differently. He didn't just think about how things fell, he dropped them. He watched, measured, and repeated his actions. This way of doing things, observing, experimenting, and seeing what happens, became super important for modern science. It's about being curious, asking, what if? And then setting up a situation to get an answer from the world itself. So, when a science class just has you read a textbook, watch a video, or look at a diagram, you're getting only half the story. You might understand what a chemical reaction is, or how electricity flows, but you don't truly feel it happen. You don't get to see the bubbling, smell the change, or feel the static. It's like learning to play an instrument by only looking at the sheet music. You can read the notes and know the rhythm, but until your fingers are on the keys or strings, making the sound, you don't really know the music. Doing experiments lets you mess up, try again, and see for yourself how the rules of nature actually play out. It's about building a real connection with the ideas, not just remembering them. It's where understanding truly takes root, moving from your head to your hands, and then deep into your grasp of the world. Have you ever felt like your teacher is super busy, maybe a bit overwhelmed, trying to help everyone at once? Well, here's the thing. Often, teachers have way too many students in their classrooms. Imagine trying to give really focused attention to 30 or even 40 different people every single day. It's a huge challenge. What this means is simple. When a teacher has a giant class, they just can't spend as much one-on-one time with each of you. It's not because they don't want to. It's about simple math and the limits of time. They have less time to answer individual questions, check if you truly understand something, or even just notice if you're having a tough day. Think about it like this. Imagine you're cooking a special dinner. If you're making a meal for just a few close friends, you can take your time, make sure everything is perfect, and add personal touches. But if you suddenly have to cook that same special meal for 100 people, you'd have to cut corners, rush, and the quality just wouldn't be the same. You'd probably feel stressed, and your guests might not get the amazing experience you wanted to give them. It's the same for a teacher. For a long time, especially as cities grew, schools got bigger. The idea was to educate as many kids as possible, which is good. But sometimes, in the rush to make sure everyone had a desk, we forgot about how many students one human teacher can truly connect with day in and day out. It's not just about delivering information. It's about guiding, understanding, and inspiring. When classes are too large, that deep connection becomes much harder to build and maintain. And in the end, it's all about whether each student feels seen and truly supported on their learning path. Ever wonder why school assemblies often feel, well, the same? You sit there, maybe a bit squished, listening to someone talk at you for a long time. Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes not. But here's the thing. This way of learning, where a big group just listens, is pretty old. Think about it like this. A long time ago, before the internet or even radio, assemblies were a really important way to share news or ideas with everyone at once. If the principal had an important message, or if someone from the town needed to share something, gathering everyone in the hall was the best way. It was efficient, it meant everyone heard the same thing at the same time. This kind of gathering worked well when information was hard to get, and people mostly learned by listening to leaders speak. It was how communities shared knowledge and built a sense of being together. But now, here's what's different. We get information in so many ways. Imagine you need to learn about a new school policy. Would you rather sit in an assembly where it's read out loud, or would you prefer a short video, a clear email, or even an interactive website where you can click on what you need to know? It's kind of like wanting to learn a new dance move. You could watch a professional dancer perform it once for a huge crowd, or you could watch a short, slow-motion video on your phone, pausing and replaying the tricky parts until you get it. The video lets you learn at your own pace. Focusing on what you need, school assemblies, in their traditional form, often miss the chance for us to actually do something, to ask questions freely, or to explore topics that truly grab our attention. We're all different, and what one person finds fascinating, another might not. So, while assemblies aim to unite us, they sometimes just remind us that one size fits all isn't always the best fit for our minds in a world full of personalized learning opportunities. Maybe true unity comes from respecting individual ways of learning and growing. Have you ever stopped to think about what makes you truly happy? Like, really happy, deep down inside? It's a big question, and it's one that our modern schools usually don't help us answer. We spend years learning about history, algebra, and the science behind the world, and those subjects are definitely important. But do we learn much about our own minds, our feelings, or how to build a life that actually feels good and makes us feel calm and content? Not so much. It's almost like we're taught how to build a super fast car, but no one teaches us how to enjoy the ride or where to go. For a very long time, people have thought deeply about happiness. Ancient thinkers, thousands of years ago, believed that being happy wasn't just something that happened to you by chance. They thought it was something you could actually learn and get better at, like practicing a skill. They often called it flourishing, which means truly thriving and living your best life. They felt that understanding yourself and knowing how to live a good, meaningful life was one of the most important things anyone could ever learn. But today, our schools tend to focus more on facts and figures and less on this idea of our inner well-being. Think about it this way. Imagine you want to become a great musician. You wouldn't just read books about music theory, would you? You'd practice playing your instrument every single day. You'd learn how to make different sounds, how to listen, and how to create something beautiful. It's kind of the same with our happiness and well-being. It's not just about knowing things, it's about practicing skills. Skills like understanding your own emotions, being kind to yourself, or finding joy in simple everyday moments. We learn to solve math problems, but we don't always learn how to solve the puzzle of feeling good or staying calm when things get tough. So here's the thing. If schools taught us more about our inner world, how to handle stress, how to connect with others in healthy ways, or even just how to figure out what brings us personal joy, wouldn't that make a huge difference in our lives? Learning these kinds of things might just be as important as any textbook lesson. It could help us build lives that aren't just successful on paper, but also rich with genuine feeling and purpose. Knowing how to be happy, or at least how to work towards it, is a powerful kind of knowledge, one that stays with you long after the final bell rings. Have you ever thought about how much we learn just by doing things, not only by reading about them? Like learning to ride a bike, you don't just read a book about it, right? You get on, you fall, you try again. That's often how we learn best in life. But often, school doesn't use the actual tools people use in the real world. Think about it. In an office, people use laptops, special software, video calls. They build apps, design websites, or manage projects using digital tools. Yet in school, we often use textbooks and notebooks, writing by hand. Most real work today uses computers and calculators for these tasks. Hundreds of years ago, when many schools started, the world was very different. Most jobs involved farming or making things by hand. Learning often meant memorizing facts or copying from books. For a long time, that worked because the world's tools were simple. But the world kept changing, and schools didn't always change as fast. Imagine trying to become a famous chef by only reading cookbooks. You'd know all the ingredients and steps, but could you actually cook a delicious meal? Probably not without getting your hands messy in a real kitchen, using real knives, real ovens, real ingredients. That's a bit like learning about the world without using its actual tools. So, when we say school feels outdated, part of it is this gap. It's like learning to swim without getting in the water. We need to try out the tools that engineers, artists, scientists, and business people use every day. When we use real tools, we don't just learn about something, we learn how to do it. And that feeling of creating or solving something with your own hands or a program, that's a deeper understanding. It stays with you, preparing you for what's next. Have you ever looked at a textbook and wondered how what you're learning connects to a real job? Here's the thing. Schools often focus on teaching us what to think. Facts, formulas, dates. But jobs in the real world mostly need us to know how to think. They need skills like problem solving, teamwork, creativity, and adapting when things don't go as planned. Think about it. A long time ago, maybe 150 years back, when factories were popping up, schools started teaching people to follow rules and do repetitive tasks. The world needed workers good at listening and doing what they were told. So, schools were set up like mini factories. You learn to sit still, follow instructions, and memorize. That model stuck, but our world has changed a lot since then. Today, jobs are less about repeating the same thing. They're more about new ideas, working with different people, and solving problems no one has faced before. It's like learning to ride a bike. You can read every book about biking, memorize rules, and understand how gears work. But you won't learn until you hop on, fall, and figure out your balance. A job is like that bike. It needs hands-on experience, quick thinking, and the ability to adjust. School gives us a base of knowledge, like the rules of the road, but it often doesn't give us enough practice driving the car. And that's okay. It just means we need to think about school as one piece of the puzzle. Becoming ready for work means learning and growing in lots of other ways too. It's about being curious, trying new things, and not being afraid to figure things out as you go. Think about how your parents learn about your school life. For many, it still means a parent-teacher conference. This is usually a short meeting, 10 or 15 minutes long, where your parents meet your teacher. The teacher quickly goes over your grades, behavior, and how you're doing. It's like a quick snapshot of your progress. Here's the thing. This way of doing things goes back a long way. Back when there wasn't email or easy ways to call people, having a set day for parents and teachers to meet face-to-face made a lot of sense. It was the best way to share important updates. People didn't have instant messaging or online folders, so you set aside time and everyone showed up. It was efficient then, like checking product quality only at the end of a factory line. But imagine how you keep up with your friends or family today. You don't wait for one short meeting every few months to know what's going on. You text, you call, you see each other often. Information flows constantly. Or think about a video game. You get real-time feedback on your progress, not just a 10-minute summary once a quarter. This old system feels a bit like trying to understand a whole movie by only watching a few minutes of it, a couple of times a year. You might miss the whole story. So it makes you wonder, does a quick chat really show the full story of your learning journey? Does it capture all the progress, the challenges, and the breakthroughs that happen every single day? It's a bit like this. Our modern school system often puts a lot of attention on what's easiest to measure. Think about it. It's pretty straightforward to give you a test on multiplication tables, or to ask you to list facts about a historical event. You either get the answer right or wrong, and a grade can be easily given. This is what we mean by the focus on what's easy to test. This idea isn't new. A long time ago, when the world was changing and factories became very important, schools started to be designed in a similar way. They needed a lot of people to do specific jobs, and tests were a quick way to check if everyone was learning the same basic things. It was all about making sure people had a common set of knowledge that could be easily checked off a list. So, what could be measured became what was most valued. But here's the thing, what's easy to test isn't always what's most valuable in life. Imagine you're trying to find the best chef. It's simple to test them on how many ingredients they can name or how many recipes they've memorized. Those are easy facts to check. But what truly makes a great chef is their creativity, how they combine flavors in new ways, their passion, or how well they work under pressure. These things are much harder to put a score on, right? You can't just mark them as correct or incorrect. So, when schools focus mostly on what's easy to test, we might miss out on developing those deeper, more human skills. We might become good at memorizing facts, but less practiced at thinking for ourselves, solving complex problems, or working together with others. It makes us wonder if we're truly preparing for the real world, where the most important lessons often can't be found on a multiple choice sheet. Have you ever wondered what makes you truly unique? What if the best parts of you, your natural talents, are things that school rarely asks you to use or even discover? Here's the thing. Modern schools often focus on subjects where you might struggle, pushing you to improve your weaknesses. But what about what you're already good at? What comes easy to you, almost without trying? That's what we mean by strength. It could be being great at listening to friends, figuring out how machines work, telling stories, or seeing patterns others miss. For thousands of years, smart thinkers have said that knowing yourself is super important. Back in ancient Greece, a famous philosopher named Socrates talked about knowing thyself. He meant really understanding who you are, what you're naturally good at, and what you care about. It wasn't just about memorizing facts. It was about figuring out your inner workings, because they believed that was the path to a good life. But our school system doesn't always build this kind of self-discovery into the daily schedule. Think of it like an orchestra. Every instrument, the loud brass, the gentle strings, the steady drum has its own strength. A violin is great at melodies, but it won't sound right trying to play a drum beat. If a music class only taught everyone to play the drums, imagine all the amazing violinists, flutists, and trombonists who would never discover their true talent. They might even feel like they're not good at music at all, just because they're not good at drums. Modern school often feels like it's only teaching us to play the drums or to be the same instrument. But here's the problem. You are a whole orchestra of unique talents. When you don't get to explore and practice what you're naturally good at, you miss out on finding your true voice. Knowing your own strengths, what makes you shine, isn't just about getting good grades. It's about becoming a confident, happy person who knows their place in the world and can share their unique music. Have you ever wondered why, when you walk into school, everyone is expected to learn the exact same things, in the exact same way, at the exact same speed? It's like school is a giant machine, and all of us are supposed to be the same size and shape to fit in. But here's the thing, people aren't machines. We're all different. Think about it. Imagine you need a new pair of shoes. Would you expect one single shoe size to fit everyone? Of course not. Your feet are unique and so are your friends. We need different sizes, different styles. It just makes sense. But in school, it often feels like they hand out one pair of shoes for everybody. And if they don't fit, well, too bad. This idea of one size fits all in education actually comes from a long time ago. Back when factories were becoming a big deal, schools were designed a bit like factories. The goal was to produce students with the same basic knowledge, ready for similar jobs. This made sense back then, but the world has changed, and we don't all need to be identical parts in a big machine anymore. Some of us learn best by reading, others by listening, or by doing. Some pick up math quickly, but find writing tough. Others might shine in art, but struggle with science. And that's okay. It's what makes us interesting. When school tries to force everyone down the same path, it can make us feel like we don't fit. But maybe the problem